Hello, ladies and gentlemen of YouTube, and welcome to episode 15 of the Council Forcecast. In session today is myself, Retty4, Evan Nova,
Hello.
Jen Sarai,
I'm Canadian, damn it.
and Antoine Bandelay.
I'm from America.
And I'm very pleased to announce that we are reviewing Aftermath.
Aftermath.
Why am I pleased?
And let's-
because I
yeah.
actually like this one a lot.
As do I. As do I.
So,
And then
same...
the two of us are quiet.
It
Okay,
glitched out for a second there.
same format as usual. We'll do non-spoilers for the first quarter or so, and then we'll switch over to spoilers, putting up a warning so you're aware. So yeah, opening thoughts, guys.
Well, I say we start off with general story like we always do, and maybe you should open this one, Callan.
It doesn't have a great one, I'll be honest, but it's not the focus of the actual book, as we'll talk later, so it doesn't matter. But basically, the Empire and Rebellion has won, so it's now kind of stepping into the New Republic stages, very early New Republic stages. Throughout the book, characters are correcting themselves, trying to remember that it is the New Republic now, not the Rebel Alliance. So as you know, it's like it's months after the Battle of Endor. It's that close. And both sides are kind of sort of stepping into their new roles. Like the Empire is stepping in on the defensive and trying to rally its rapidly decreasing population as they switch over to the New Republic side. And New Republic are trying to sort of what's the word?
They're trying to find their footing
Cement
within.
their
I'm trying to think
place.
of a technical term, but consolidate their new power because they've got half the galaxy is now switching to their side. They're not a small alliance anymore of rebel freedom fighters. They're forming, a new government, a galactic government, and it kind of tries to get that across in bits and pieces throughout the book. But essentially, it's kind of difficult to describe this story because so much is happening in various different ways.
It's just a big piece of world building, is what.
Yeah, that's essentially like what you could say to describe this book. It is dedicated towards world building. It's basically just showing us what the galaxy is like after Return of the Jedi. And this is, interestingly enough, this is the first post-Return of the Jedi book in a very long time, and I guess the first canon one now because of Legends. But despite that, basically the bulk of the book is just dedicated to just showing you, all these different worlds and all these different people and, how they're just reacting. It's just a reaction phase.
Yeah, and different characters are sort of coming together under different circumstances. Because the book's kind of split into a bunch of short stories, but with a main story kind of written between the short moments.
Has these cutaways.
Yeah, these cutaways that don't really matter to the overall story, but they're just kind of showing glimpses, like almost like adverts between a TV program you might be watching, showing snippets. And the main story is a bunch of characters come together and accomplish a goal and trying to liberate a planet, which turns out to be a lot more important galactically speaking than they realised, but that's not what they're trying to do in the first place. The story is kind of on a galactic scale, but it's told through the perspective of a personal group of people that are seeing it as a very much we have to solve this specific problem kind of thing, which is it's nice. It's a good lens on how to view Star Wars. It always has been, in my opinion. But yeah, it's not much to the story with this one. We'll probably be moving on to characters a lot sooner than we usually would, because that's where the meat of the book is. And
Of course.
yeah, what do you guys think? Initial reactions from most of you.
Yeah, I just want to start by saying I absolutely love this book. Like you mentioned, while the story does jump around a bit, this book's intention is to show you, how the galaxy is reacting to the Empire being defeated and, Emperor being killed and Vader being killed. And it nails that perfectly. Like it is, basically just going to you and saying, this is what happens to the galaxy after this. And it just nails it completely. And honestly, I know some of the critics have complained about the cutaways in the sense that they feel like they're taking away from the main story. I never got that from me because the cutaways are only at most like 3 pages long, so I never felt like they were breaking the flow. They lasted just long enough to make an impression and get you a sense of what's going on in the galaxy without breaking the flow of the main narrative. And the writing style is so fluid that I guess that's another thing we should talk about. The writing style is, I really enjoyed it personally. I don't know how you guys feel.
It was a little bit too simple for my tastes, but I prefer more complicated structure and writing style.
Right.
But it was,
Simple,
it was perfectly good. It was for the exploration of the characters it was trying to do. It made sense and was a good choice. Just didn't help the plot too much.
Yeah. I love this book. That's all I gotta say for general thoughts.
Sorry, what were you going to say on that, Antoine? I didn't mean to interrupt then.
On the writing style, yeah, I thought it was kind of bizarre to have it in the present tense. First, I didn't really care about it. Like when I read the preview, I thought it was like okay, it didn't really bother me. But then reading throughout the entire book, I started like correcting it back into the past tense because that works really well for like screenplays and stage plays and things like that because that's what it's meant for. It's supposed to be happening as you see it because it's meant to be seen. It's meant to be on a stage, and to have it like that makes sense. But for a narrative, I don't know, that was very jarring for me. And his sentences were very curt. Like some of his sentences were just like one word long, or his paragraphs were just a sentence, and it was a little bit too erratic for me, for my own personal taste. But it wasn't. The book was not written bad. Like some people are making it out to like, oh, he's a terrible writer, which I don't think is the case at all. I just think his style has some people have preferences to the style and some people don't have a preference to the style. And I think that's where that comes from. He's not a bad writer whatsoever. He does a very good job of writing the book itself, but it's just the writing style I didn't have a preference to. In terms of the entire story, I actually think that this novel, I guess, is kind of like a set of anthologies masquerading as a decent novel. Like I actually preferred the interludes versus the main storyline. I actually would probably preferred if we just had just the interludes as like its own thing, just seeing where the galaxy's at and seeing different little short stories versus the main plot line. Because I didn't really get into the main plot line until the very end when I felt like there was more interaction with that group that we had, the little ragtag group we had. Because at the beginning, I didn't really find a lot of them interesting until their characters kind of showed through their character through their group dynamic and when they actually started to directly interact with the Empire itself.
Right.
Yeah, I agree with pretty much all of that.
Yeah.
But when you mentioned about the sort of curt nature of the sentence structures and stuff, that's what I meant by simplicity. It is very much. I mean, like you said, there are single sentence word sentences, which they are well used most of the time. But there are some times when it is a bit jarring. Like it kind of brings you out of it. Interesting. Particularly when it comes to the sort of inner dialogue of or in the monologue of the characters. They at many points the characters kind of talk to you, the reader, and it's like. Huh.
Yeah.
They don't actually do that, but it's kind of like
right.
It gives that impression. Like the throwaway line about I mean, TIE fighters are suicide ships after all, aren't they? I'm like, well, who are you asking that question? Yeah.
It's definitely different. It's definitely different, and I could definitely see how someone could be put off by it. But for me, it was never much of an issue because I've actually read novels in similar, I guess, quote-unquote clipped styling, so it was something I was kind of already used to beforehand, so I didn't really find the transition all that jarring, personally.
Yeah. What did you think of it, Connor?
For me, it's like the novel is very much a character piece focusing on all of these different people. Like, that's what its main purpose is, and in a way, that's kind of both its strength and its weakness.
That's actually true, yeah.
It's great because because all of the characters in and of themselves are actually really interesting, like the Imperial Loyalty Officer, functioning alcoholic. I loved this guy. He was a lot of fun. But the problem is that because of the way the book is set up, where it's just kind of looking at these events that are happening, it's like for most of the book, it's just looking at events that are happening outside of the characters and just having their reactions with them kind of getting involved later. And because of that, there wasn't really any feeling of tension for me reading this book. There was never, I was never wondering or worried about what would happen next. It's like, the thing is that trying to power through this book was actually quite difficult for me because this is the sort of book that you really just want to kind of take and you want to take it in smaller doses at an easier pace. You don't want to power through this thing because there's just not enough in here to hold interest when you're doing that. It's the sort of thing that it's strictly casual reading. And that's, as I said, that's kind of its strength and its weakness. It's casual reading books are good books, but when it comes to, are you here for a story? The book's not really delivering on that front. Are you here for characters and world building? The book excels on those fronts.
Yeah, it's definitely very information based. Like you're gonna get a lot of information out of this book, more so than a very very deep story. I would say, like in the way that we got. I know you were mentioning before Tarkin. Like I think Tarkin excels in its story versus this one, which excels in just like giving us information about the galaxy.
Right.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, Connor, and on the character analysis side of things, it is a character piece, which is probably why I love it so much, because that's exactly my kind of story. I love
Yeah, I
throwing-
love character pieces too.
Yeah,
So
I love being thrown into a world, having it built around you by the book, and then have sort of being among the characters and just watching them go. Because that, for me, that is a particular strength of Star Wars itself. I mean, looking at the crew dynamic of Knights of the Old Republic, that's the reason that game is so popular. It's the crew, and this I feel is the first time that real crew dynamic has been nailed as well, if not better.
Or the very original crew. We had Ben Kenobi, Luke Skywalker, Han, Leia.
Yeah, of course.
That's
That was
a ragtag group that never was meant to be a group at all, and then they go on to be galactic heroes.
Definitely, yeah. I didn't mention that one specifically because for me, I feel it's a kind of different dynamic. It's less a team that becomes a family, and more a kind of tightly knit group of friends that becomes a family. But it didn't feel like a crew dynamic, if you know what I mean. It was
I know what you mean, because they didn't stay together the whole time.
Yeah, it was always like a family first, crew second. The crew wasn't a part of it, whereas this dynamic is definitely the kind. Even though they're not really a crew, it feels more that way. Same with the.
They're definitely going to be that
team
going forward, I would say.
Yeah. That's the impression you get anyway. Which again, I love. I have a thing for teams. I love them.
And it was good for me because I actually liked them. I think it was maybe like the last 5 chapters. There was a particular scene I'll talk about with Sim. Is it Sinjir? How are we going to say his name? Are we saying Sinjir?
Hang on, let me read it again. Sinjir,
But the loyalty,
I'd say Sinjir.
the loyalty officer. There's a particular scene he had, and then I was like, I'm on board with this guy. And then he had another little interaction with the bounty hunter, and I was like, okay, I'm down for those two.
Yeah.
But then the only ones I'm not down for yet, really, is Nora and Tim and the mother-daughter duo.
Mother-son.
But everyone else I'm pretty down for. I'm sorry, did I say mother daughter? Yeah, mother son. Fun to say.
But I'm not the opposite. I agree halfway and disagree the other. I love all the characters. This is a rare occurrence for me because I usually have one character that I just find boring. It didn't happen for this one. I actually really enjoyed all of them and how they played off each other. I felt the biggest thing for me about this book is it feels natural. As I said in the last podcast, that's what matters for me. It nailed it. And I was like, yes, thank you. Because all the character interaction feels like it would be something that would happen between real people, not a script for characters.
Absolutely nothing in this book feels forced. It all feels like this is actually happening at this time in this universe with these people. It never feels like, I guess you could almost say scripted. It never feels like they're doing this for the sake of this because this will happen. It's because it feels like they're doing this because this is just what someone would do.
Yeah, in many cases it feels like they're doing the things that actually works against what would be a script. Because there are many times when it kind of goes back and forth thinking, oh, well, that seems like a kind of pointless story loop, but it enhanced the characters, so it's done its job. Because again, you don't look at this from a plot perspective, look at it from a character one.
Yeah, it wasn't like a Dynasty of Evil where everything was either where it completely felt scripted and everything was either contrived or completely plot focused instead of just happening naturally.
Yeah, it nailed it in that regard, I think.
I agree that the character interactions were natural, but I felt some of the dialogue itself wasn't natural. Like a lot of the characters speak in metaphor and like very, very like deep metaphors, and not just like one character, which would be okay. Like if someone's like very poetic, which actually was one of the things that is brought up. I think one of the Imperial officers says that, or someone refers to someone being poetic. But like it seems like every character has like a metaphor for something. Like for instance, there's this one instance where someone says, "Oh, where is it?" Here it is. With us destroying one another like rats driven by mad hunger, rats who eat one another instead of hunting. Like I was like, people don't really talk like that. And it's like it was consistent with all the characters. So that kind of took me out of it because that was very much the author implanting his own vocabulary, I guess, to the characters versus having each character have their own very distinct voice, except for Mr. Bones. Mr. Bones had very perfectly characterized.
We'll Reddit is a standout character. We'll get to him later.
Oh god, he's so great.
We'll get to him when we get to
because he was such a he was like the complete opposite of what you expect from a B1 battle droid.
He's new as well. He's not like a rehash of HK-47 or
no, he's not. He's completely
not even close.
Yeah, he's really good. But we'll talk about him later. We must get sidetracked.
Yeah. Well, before we move into character, I was thinking because we do have to talk about the world it's creating and what state the galaxy is in and what's going on at some point. Should we do that after or before characters?
We did that. I think
We touched on it a bit in the non-spoilers.
Yeah, we'll talk about it a bit more.
But I
now,
meant like
think.
specific things, like what the New Republic is, what the Empire is doing, what
gotcha.
worlds,
Well,
and that sort of thing.
So yeah, I
how
guess
how this could feed into the next few movies too.
right. So the main premise right now is that the Empire is holding this conference, a summit as they call it, on this new planet called the Kiva.
Jungle Planet.
Jungle Planet, yes, indeed. And it's actually led by Ray Sloan, who is someone we're seeing from A New Dawn. So this is the first.
She was a cadet in New Dawn, and now you see her become a full-on officer. And what's cool is like she has pretty much the same personality she did too. So her transition, it doesn't feel like, what I liked about her is it doesn't feel like they just, let's put this person in because we've used her before and she's popular. No, it's like it feels like very natural that she's being here and she's contributing.
Yeah.
And it's a very natural arc for her too, because she started off as like a low-level cadet, and now she's like, okay, I'm at a very high-level position because everyone else is dead right now.
Pretty much. Yeah.
I need to make this work, and I like that a lot. Like she was one of my favorite characters, especially on my favorite scenes in the main plotline were the Imperial Summit scenes. Like their discussions, I thought were very, very interesting, and what they were deciding to do. And
we'll
I
get to that when we do spoilers.
Yeah, I'm not getting into specifics, but and I think it was a really cool dichotomy because. The New Republic was actually thinking they were actually considering, maybe possibly doing a monarchy, which is kind of what they had already because Mon Mothma is the chancellor right now of the New Republic. There's not a council quite yet, but she's trying to build to that thing.
In the Senate too.
Correct. And with the Empire, they're thinking, oh, shoot, maybe a tyrannical rule doesn't work. Maybe we should have a council. But then they're critical of that because they're like, well, it takes so long to get things done that way. That's why Palpatine was such a great leader. He just, people listened to what he said and we could just do it. And that was like I like the idea that they were starting to learn from each other and figure out what would be the best way of doing it. And like that part of the story, I really, really found intriguing.
Part of that dichotomy, sorry, I hate that word. Also just kind of shows, just what kind of influence war can have. When you're engaged in a grand scale conflict for such a long period, you get to see, people's ideals start to impact one another. It's not just a case of them fighting. It's a case of them seeing like who these people are and how they work. And then, after such a long conflict, it just shows how they've been affected by the Rebel Alliance and vice versa.
Yeah.
And also, I just want to say this. I like that they kept the name New Republic. I was afraid that they were going to go for something else.
Yeah, anything
else. It's like New Republic. Like it works. It works fine. And Mon Mothma is Chancellor again, like she was in the classic EU.
While we're talking about it, that's something I love about this book. Nothing in it has despite like tiny details, but you can work around all of them. Like you really can work around them, which I like.
Like 99%.
Nothing has overridden the EU. Everything that happens in this book could have happened before Thrawn reared his head, which is how I personally view it, because I'm always going to be trying to fit this new stuff into the old canon.
Yeah.
And
it actually fits really well if you think of it as the precursor to the Thrawn trilogy.
Yeah, definitely. The themes, the setting itself, the way the characters are interacting with one another. Mon Mothma, as you said, you see the strain kind of starting to build, because this is the point where she stops from being like a rallying point for the Alliance and starts to be like the center of the galaxy. Everything goes to her, and she has to take that burden, and that really gets hammered in the Thrawn trilogy. But it's nice to see it start here and be able to still feed into the Thrawn trilogy.
Again, very natural, a very natural progression.
Yeah, it was a little bit, as Antoine said with the metaphor kind of stuff, it felt a little bit forced when she was walking, because she walks down the street, doesn't she? And,
with the soldiers, everywhere.
Like, it's Mon Mothma, so I can kind of buy it, but
Mon Mothma's okay.
She might be the only person in the galaxy that actually talks like that, but it still seems a little bit forced. But with the Imperial...
She was always kind of dramatic, though.
Yeah, she's always been... True. Yeah, she's always had a kind of flair about her. Which has to
look what she did. Like, what did she do in Return of the Jedi? She, like, stands in front of this big group of people, and she's all making this grandiose speech with... It's like,
Many Bothans died.
Many Bothans died.
Yeah, exactly. So...
And the way she said that, she was so like...
yes.
War. And that's actually... That carries over in the story, too. She's very much... very, very adverse to war. Yes. She even says in the novel, like, oh, I understand that it's necessary. I know sometimes it has happened, but I just can't, like, I can't get used to this. Like, it's not for me. I'm about creating peace, and, like, just seeing wars, like, just tears her apart, which is great.
Yeah. And you shouldn't, too. I've brought you here so you can see this, so you never get to the point where you don't understand and appreciate the sacrifices people are making. Yeah.
And the newscasting segments too.
Yes, oddly, I mean, initially I thought, oh, this is going to be a bit tedious, but no, they did that really well.
No, yeah, all the
crap,
interludes
yeah.
are great. I think
Yeah.
I don't think there's
Yeah.
a single interlude that I ever was like, no, no, thank you.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
liked all of them.
So,
I
yeah.
think, yeah, most of them. There were a
We
few of
can
them
talk
I found
about
kind
the
of a bit tedious, but apart from like two,
Yeah.
they were all great for me.
Yeah, so I guess that would be a good segment into characters then, because if we go any more on the world building, it's just gonna get into spoilers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're getting to the point where we're getting to spoilers.
Yeah, because the world building is very much tied into the story. Well, the
So-
story of the book.
All right, let's start off by examining the first major character we see in this book, Wedge. Wedge is back. Wedge
Yes.
Antilles is back, and I'm sorry, I know. While his presence is a bit superfluous, I was really gratified to actually see Wedge again because. Well, first of all, this is the first novel he's been in like quite a while. Like the first novel where he's
Since
an
the
actual
90s.
Yeah, well, the first novel where he's like a somewhat central character, and it was really cool seeing him again. And they nailed his character too, which I was surprised about. It feels like Wedge. It was just yeah, it was probably blatant fan service at the end of the day, but I enjoyed seeing Wedge again, and I enjoyed seeing him do his usual shtick. And he has some really cool scenes. Like I really love his escape from Imperial custody. Both of them, because he gets captured at one
Classic
point.
Wedge.
Yeah, classic Wedge. And he feels like classic Wedge. You know, he's
Yeah.
very intelligent, but he also has a bit of a mouth on him. He's an excellent pilot and an excellent fighter. It's like, oh, brilliant. Yeah, this is Wedge. It's
Oops, sorry. cut out the
Did you
last
say
second then.
something?
no, I stopped talking.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay.
So what do you guys like? What Wedge? Any thoughts?
Oh, you going as well, am I?
Well,
You can go because I don't
Connor,
have any. I don't have much thoughts on Wedge.
Okay. Connor, what about you? You've not said much yet.
I don't really have much to say on Wedge. They didn't really do much with him. It's like, spoiler alert, he gets captured and then spends most of the book in a chemically induced coma.
True.
Yeah, it's true. They didn't do much. But while it was obviously a nod to fan service and say, "Who
Yeah.
we've got Wedge here," it wasn't one that in any way damaged the book. It was a case of, okay, that's fan service. It's a good fan service. Move
Yeah.
on. You know, it wasn't a case of, oh god, why have they done him in here? They've forced him in. It makes everything feel unnatural. There was none of that, which is fine in my books, really. And it kind of made sense for him as a character as well. Again, it felt natural. Him at this point in time would be the sort of character that goes and does this sort of thing.
Exactly.
Because his kind of the responsibilities haven't kind of collapsed on him at that point. Again, starting with the Thrawn trilogy,
Yeah.
and it can
Antoine?
make sense that this might be a sort
I already
of
said I don't
mission
have
to gain some
many thoughts on Wedge.
None.
Not really. Like he was cool at the beginning, and then yeah, he was just like just a pawn or not a piece for the Empire to have against the Republic if anything
Right.
happened, during the summit.
A really
They did
meddlesome
kind of use
piece.
him as a human shield, didn't they?
No, that backfired on him, didn't it?
Yeah, I know that's his escape was great. Yeah, so basically Wedge, somewhat superfluous, blatant fan service, but ultimately unoffensive in his usage.
Yeah, and excellent execution for him, which is nice to
Exactly.
see.
He was Wedge. They didn't really make him feel like he was just some random pilot or something like that.
Yeah.
And I guess we should also touch on, since they're even less covered in the book, Han and Chewie are in the book as well.
Well, yeah, that's gonna be an interlude, which is very. I think that'll be spoiler
Really?
territory.
Okay, well
Yeah.
let's start with the main character that
Well, speaking of pilots, we can go right into Nora, who
Nora,
is very
yes.
interesting because she actually is straight up in Return of the Jedi. If you guys
Yes.
remember, there's a split when Lando and Wedge
put up
went
the picture,
to.
Antoine. I mean, Callan. Sorry.
When they split off, they were distracting the ties to go out one way, and then Wedge and Lando went the other way. She is the Y-wing, and
Yep.
she was there during that battle, and I thought that was pretty cool. That's a good way of pulling someone from the movie who's been in the movie for like a split second and giving them a full
Yeah.
fleshed out backstory.
And it's,
That's what the
it's
I
what the
actually-
EU does best.
Yeah.
Oh, you.
Yeah. We both
Yeah,
said the same
that's the
thing.
best thing. That's
I
why I
like-
love this book.
I
We did
like
not plan that.
I liked her individually. I liked her.
I liked her.
Very much, and I liked her tenacity within this book.
She
And I
does not quit.
agree with
She
what
does
she
not
did.
quit.
I don't. Yeah, she does not quit at all.
Oh yeah. Oh, you take issue with the sort of conflict between her and her son, don't you?
Yeah. No, I didn't buy it. I didn't buy it.
I completely agree with you on the logic of it, and she is definitely 100% right to have done what she did. But I can completely believe and buy into the natural effect that would have on a teenage kid. I can see that, and with the way it's resolved as well. We'll talk about it later. But I find that situation much more believable than you, I think. And as you say, she's a great character outside of the whole conflict side of things. Really nice to see an exploration of a sort of natural mother as well, because we haven't really seen that in Star Wars.
That relationship is not one that's touched on. You know, there's daddy issues. There's daddy issues aplenty in Star Wars, but never one between a mother and son. Well, let's be honest, it's true.
Yeah, no, and this one again, it wasn't quite issues. But it wasn't like, you know, the typical, oh god, this mother's terrible, you know, la da da. It felt very real. Again, it was a real situation between real people, and very believable and relatable as a result.
Yeah, neither of them were wrong, and neither of them were right. You know, they both had, you know, flaws, and they both had, you know, actual reasoning to do what they did. Yeah. Like, you know,
sorry, Karen.
Oh no, it's like what you were saying, Antoine, about his reactions. Like, yeah, it's a bit, you know, nonsensical, but remember, he's a 14-year-old kid. He's not gonna think of the big picture, and that's even something the book tries to point out. He's not gonna think, oh, my mom's doing this for the Rebel Alliance. He's a 14-year-old kid whose dad is also gone too, so he's obviously already damaged to begin with. So I agree with Callan in the sense that while it is a little nonsensical, I think it makes sense too, because again, he's a kid.
He's like an angsty Harry Potter from Order of the Phoenix.
Yeah,
I don't know if that works for
say
Callan.
that badly, but for me,
it's not as bad as Harry Potter. But
for me, he should have been aged up a bit. He was too. I mean, it's perfect. I hate the fact that, you know, when people say, "Oh, he's 14 or 12," or I don't know whether they're not old enough to understand it or really get it, because people can. But I feel like he acted more of a generic, like 17, 19-year-old, that kind of age bracket, rather than 15. It felt weird when they mentioned how young he was. Like, oh, really? He's doing this at this age. I mean, Ezra's his age, bear in mind. You know, and it's child, adult. That's how big a difference it is.
Going with what you were saying, that you understand or you feel for his angst as a teenager, I think it makes more sense if he was younger than if he was 19 and near adulthood. You know, I think if he was 19, that characterization would make even less sense to me.
No, I agree. I didn't mean to say that's right. I just meant everything else about his character, like his maturity outside the mother-daughter relationship. And let's face it, that kind of relationship kind of undercuts maturity anyway most of the time. But yeah, he, like, you know, how intelligent he was, the sort of thing he was getting up to.
He owned his own shop.
Yeah,
you know?
The responsibility of his aunts. You know, he went and looked after
and
his aunts and stuff. So, you know, it seemed like a bit older than 15 for the generic person. You know, obviously there are people who can do anything at any age, but yeah. So that side of it, I think, that make more sense if he'd been older. But yeah, for his maturity with his mother, that would definitely make more sense for a younger person.
Mm-hmm.
But
Connor, what did you think of the mother-son?
For me, I was just kind of put off by how much of an idiot the kid was. The mom herself was cool. Like, I actually really liked her opening scene where she takes control of the smuggler's ship and does the crazy-ass pilot stuff. It's like, okay, this character's a badass. I'm officially on board. But then I find out the fractured dynamic with her kid, and, well, it's like, on the one hand, I'm just so put off by how stupid the kid is, but on the other hand, I'm feeling a lot of sympathy for how damaged he is because of what happened. And it's like, you know, that's kind of the one big sort of problem when it comes to being a parent, whether mother or father. It's like you're always having to juggle the different priorities of what your kid needs versus what the world around you needs.
Right.
And it's like, in my view, it's like, when you're a parent, end of the day, all of your first priority needs to be your kid, damn everything else. And the fact that she basically abandoned her kid, just to me, is just like not quite reprehensible, because she does go out of her way to try and justify herself. You know, a true douchebag parent wouldn't even bother. But at the same time, I feel that she made the wrong call in that instance. Because it's like, if you don't have a kid, great, do what you want with your life. But the moment you have a kid, until that kid hits 18, that kid has to be your number one priority.
I agree to a point. I mean, I get where you're coming from, but also, like,
half and half for me.
Yeah, like, if you see, like, in nature, sometimes the mother has to leave to get things done. You know, sometimes you have to just let your kid be there, you know, because you got to go hunt, or you got to go protect your land, and that's kind of what I felt she was doing. She wasn't abandoning him, saying like, "Oh, I just can't be a mother right now. Let me just like go and be part of the Rebel Alliance." She went there to protect.
She had a cause.
She overall wanted to protect him, by getting, you know, it's weird, because like,
That's
her
why I said,
overall
like,
goal was good, but then like yeah, then it's like but then the child does need that individual care, especially with
yeah.
the father being gone. But it wasn't like she left him with no one. Like she still had her sister there, so
Yeah.
It
yeah,
depends
I
on
guess
the
it's half half.
intentions
It's
as
half and
well.
half.
It's not like she was some thrill seeker that just went off on an adventure because she wanted to. But she was very much focusing on this is the right thing to do. I have a duty to the galaxy, you know. And
Well,
it
she does kind of
bring
admit a
up on
little
that.
bit that it was a little bit of thrill. Like
She
remember
does that.
Yeah, but only to
She
the
does say
extent,
that too. Her
only to the
thrill of
extent that
flying.
she's admitting the natural response. You know, she's
The
not saying
natural
that I'm
thrill.
going seeking for this. She just acknowledges that that is a thing.
right,
she
right.
has,
Like
yeah.
she has I'm gonna say like a passion for duty, I
Yeah,
guess.
Exactly.
and
A call of
and that's
duty.
not wrong. Yeah, she doesn't put that before her kid. She just sees that it has to come before her kid, and it's not like it's
Yeah.
objective reality. You know,
She sees the needs of, the big picture. She understands she has to do this to make his life, better essentially.
yeah, and she's not discarding the fact that she has failed him as a result. You know, it's a sacrifice. It's a necessary evil for the greater good. She's not just going, oh well, I had to do it. It's fine. I've done nothing wrong. And she acknowledges that she's failed him, and she feels bad for
Several
it. So
times. Yeah.
To me, I don't think it damages either of their character.
She is generally remorseful, which is like what Connor was saying, which is what separates her from like you said, a normal douchebag parent who would just go out and seek it for thrill. At least she had an actual goal in mind.
Yeah.
That was positive.
Yeah, and he gets
And hey,
that.
she helped
He knows
she
that.
helped blow up this Death Star, so I say she did a good job.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she's no just random pilot. She's really damn good.
No, she's good. She's like one of the top tier.
Yeah, but well, she's
Very,
Gold
yeah.
Squadron, isn't she? But
Yeah.
but yeah, and the kid gets that. You know, it's not. I see where you're coming from to an extent, Connor, but he's not like a. He's not making a conscious decision and sort of feeding into the hate and like, God, she's a horrible person. Why did she go off and leave me? No. He's just kind of that's the emotional response, and he's hurt by that. It's not like he's making a conscious decision to feel that way. So it's kind of
Again, like a real person would.
yeah. Again, it's something that I can very much believe for someone in his situation. Not because of his age, but a lot of people his age would have that reaction, which is why for me it's believable.
Mm-hmm.
And we see he's intelligent in other regards.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
he
he
could
made-
build droids like nobody's business.
I mean, he made a
He built
B1
bones.
droid functional.
Yeah, he made him
Well,
competent. Yeah, not even competent.
yeah,
but-
well, let's do Mr. Bones last because that'll be a
Yeah.
good thing to end up. Should we move into Terran now? Oh, that might.
Well, I think we kind of spoke about both of them together.
Okay.
So,
Well, let's Sinjin then.
yeah, I was gonna say and Sinzir
Sinzir.
and oh my goodness, Bounty Hunter.
Kaz. No, Jazz.
Thank you, Jazz.
Jazz.
Jazz. So Jas.
Kazmari, is that her name?
Jazz. Kazmari.
I can't remember.
Right.
Which,
Something like that.
yeah. Which, interestingly enough, she is actually the
Esmari.
she is actually the niece of the Zabrak bounty hunter that was in Clone Wars.
Sook, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh snap!
Yeah, she was one
Yeah.
of that.
She
team.
was.
I didn't
she,
catch that.
You didn't catch it? Oh no, yeah.
No.
That remember that bounty hunter chick who fought
the
Darth
farmers.
Maul?
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, she's her niece.
That's awesome.
Initially,
Which
I
is
thought it
really
might have been
sweet.
actually her, and then I thought, wait, no, that wasn't a name. And then they made reference to it later, going, oh, okay, it's niece.
Yeah.
Oh, I must have missed that point.
Yeah.
But she's an
So
interesting
she's-
character. She's probably the most one note of them all, but not to the
True.
point
She's
where she was
she's a
boring
bounty
or
hunter.
anything.
That's her whole shtick.
Yeah,
Yeah,
her
but she
one
has her own
goal was her
spin
one
to it.
goal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Um,
I liked her though. I liked her.
Yeah, again, and it goes into little details with the character. Like, for example, she has tunnel vision, which she admits. Like, when she's looking down a scope, she kind of blanks the world around her, and very early on into well, it's an introductory scene.
Gets her in
It
trouble early on.
Yeah,
Yep,
it
it
talks
does.
about that. And you know, little details like that kind of just wouldn't be looked at in most stories. And that's the sort of detail that she gets added to as she goes along. She doesn't really have like a big arc like the others do.
Yeah. Or her view on working with teams. Like she touches on the fact that she always works alone because she doesn't like trusting people.
Yeah.
With her life. She was like her aunt always had a team behind her. She always worked alone because, unlike her aunt, she wasn't able to forge those connections.
Yeah.
Which is why working with this group was so difficult for her at the beginning. In fact, at the beginning of the book, she didn't even view them as like comrades. She just saw them as just ways to exercise her own
Right.
agenda.
Tools. But not in.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
We're painting a bad picture of that. She wasn't like the
Right.
lone wolf character. It wasn't like the usual. Oh, I work alone kind of thing.
No,
it was,
yeah.
It was just kind of that was an ethos that she had. She didn't want it. She just had it from the sake of caution. She
Yeah.
had this training of find a good crew underneath, and that inspiration. That's what she wanted really. but she
had trouble finding.
Yeah, she was looking for it basically, and she hadn't found it until this point. It wasn't like she had, I can't work with you guys.
No,
like
no.
It's just yeah. Which again,
it takes a lot. It takes a lot for her to trust basically.
Yeah. No, it was good with that. But that was basically
which was cool,
had, really, isn't it? There wasn't much else. About her.
Just her profit. She was just trying to expand her profit as much as she could.
She was a hella good fighter, though.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
No,
yeah.
So
I just,
sorry, Connor.
I had a lot of fun with Sinjir because it's like, well, firstly, the guy's a functioning alcoholic. The whole impression I get from the way his mind works and the sort of things he dreams about is that this guy probably has some pretty nasty PTSD because
yeah, as well as guilt.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And it's kind of funny. It's like this is a guy who is it's like he's a guy who spent his entire life just kind of coasting on neutral, just doing what he's told, being the good Imperial officer, until he's finally just put in a situation where he finally just snaps, that being the Battle of Endor. But the thing I found most interesting is that he doesn't seem to realize that he's snapped. It's like every single situation he's in, he resolves, first thing, I'm going to be a selfish, lazy asshole prig and just leave. Fuck you guys. And then suddenly he finds himself in a fist fight with someone who's bullying someone else. And it's just like, and he's like, well, too late to turn back now, so let's just roll with it.
Yeah,
His conscience has control, but the alcohol's kind of keeping him unaware of that.
Exactly. That's another thing, too.
Okay,
Like,
I'm just going to leave now. Oh, wait, never mind.
yeah.
I'm good now, and it's like, now that the big fight's over, give me that bottle of tequila for the road.
Yeah, is it
Yeah, it's
good?
kinda like-
Okay.
Yeah.
Look.
Yeah,
like,
exactly. He's like, "Will it get me drunk?" Like,
Yeah. Kind of like what's that movie where Jackie Chan plays like this like drunk martial artist
Drunk
and
master?
he like was that
Drunken
it?
master.
His drunken master?
No, but
I don't know.
his whole shtick was that he drank so much that he developed his own fighting style to compensate for it.
drunk. That's not
Drunken
drunk. It was
Foo,
something
isn't
else.
it?
I don't know. It's been ages since I saw the movie, but that's kind of what it reminded me of.
I think the movie itself is just called Drunken Master, and that's it. But that's,
Okay. Well, he was a drunken master essentially. He was kicking ass.
But this guy wasn't like entirely drunk as well. He was just kind of
No,
he was
no.
constantly keeping the buzz on, which he kind of references in the book. He's
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
I'm
He was
not
like-
drunk. I just want to keep that fine thing.
Yeah.
It's like
He was
Jack
actually-
Sparrow.
he was
Jack
actually
Yeah,
Sparrow.
it's
very
very
intelligent.
Jack Sparrow. That's what I was going to say.
Very Jackson. Yeah. He was actually very intelligent.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Funny.
And
as well.
I liked he was funny and he had a very a quick wit about him, which I actually it reminded me a lot of the characters from the J.K. Rowling Harry Potter series. A lot of those characters are sometimes a little bit too witty, but I liked his wit, especially towards the end. Like he started laying into like one of the characters
lines.
really good.
Yeah. Well, I liked that aspect of his character because, what was his position in the Empire? What was his official title again?
Loyalty
Loyalty
officer.
officer.
He was a loyalty officer, so his job was to basically root out any weakness or any treachery in the Empire. So he trained himself to recognize social cues. It's kind of like that old what's that show? That old TV show called Lie to Me, where basically the main police officer, he trained himself to recognize everything from like blinking too many times or clenching your fist or your pulse changing by measuring the hairs on the back of your head, that sort of thing like that. So he's basically able to pick up on things everyone else isn't, which is very interesting because this guy's almost hyper aware.
Yeah,
the way he like examines everything, it's very interesting.
Yeah, it's not
And
quite to the extent of
man-
Lightman, but it's close. I mean, he's secret police kind of thing.
Exactly, and which really feeds also into his animosity towards the Empire because he even said it himself. My job was to root out the traitors. My job was to root out the weakness, and I saw the Empire at its core and how awful it was. And it really, to be honest, I mean, his reasoning for abandoning the Empire is totally justified because he. The veil wasn't over his eyes. He saw the Empire's cruelty for what it truly was.
He saw its weakness. The very weakness
exactly.
he trained them to, or they trained him to see that he saw.
Yeah. You train someone to see the worst in everybody. They're gonna see the worst in everything.
Yeah.
It's just a consequence of logistics.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, he was a great character, functioning alcoholic, and
You can't someone you can't lie to.
It was deep as well. It wasn't just like a
Yeah,
like
it was.
the PST. The PST thing was explored, and it wasn't just glazed over
Yeah.
and then he'll be the witty drunk. You know, it was.
It's brutal. He was
They-
just
they're
like
all real
walking
people, I feel
indoor,
like it.
everything's burning, his
Yeah,
soldiers are all dead. It's like shit.
yeah. Weird. He sort of had sort of view, a view of the universe, like it's a cosmic moment, that kind of thing. He
Yeah.
even brought that up early on. I was like, did
It's
this
like
mean
one-
something?
Yeah.
Yeah,
For
that
me,
too.
it's like one of the most interesting bits was just that little flashback he has, like where when he's punched unconscious and is just flashing back to the Battle of Endor and is just walking along, seeing all of his dead comrades, and it's just like, at the end of it, he's like, he should blame the rebels, but he like that's what he says to himself, but he doesn't, because he kind of realizes that the Empire kind of did this to itself by being what it is. And the rebels had kind of earned the right to celebrate.
Yeah, I mean, he even says
Yeah.
good on them. You know, he's like
Yeah.
damn hicks
Exactly.
and farmers and lowlifes and pilots and good on them.
Yeah,
I like that about
exactly.
him.
Like
That kind of sums up his character.
not something a lot of Imperial officers would admit, which is
Yeah.
very, very interesting.
Yeah.
But again, it goes with this whole interrogation stick. You know, he was trained to see the weakness in everybody, so he saw the weakness in the Empire.
Yeah, and by
Yeah, he
extension,
saw
strength
the
of
Empire as
rebellion.
like an overly authoritative parent, kind of, and it's kind
Yeah.
of, you see that with parents who are just like set so many rules on their kids and just give them no kind of freedom whatsoever. And then what happens? Those kids rebel, and that's exactly. And he saw that. He's like, hey, the grip is a little bit too tight here, guys. Like, loosen it up a little bit.
And then without
Yeah.
knowing it, slipped out of that grip himself. And just went, whoop. I'm
Yep.
gone.
Yeah.
It was very funny as well, which I loved about him. The
Oh,
entire
he was
book actually
hilarious.
was very funny. It reminded me of the Skullduggery Pleasant series. The humor, specifically with him, was very much akin to that kind of style, which I enjoyed. Have you?
Yeah,
have
the
you
humor
guys read
the
any?
humor didn't feel no, but I think I know what you're going for, because the humor felt very like, sometimes books will just put in humor just for the sake of, hey, let's get a laugh out of the reader, but the humor in this felt very natural. You could really say that a lot about the book, really, but
Well, yeah, it's just natural, isn't it? That's the best thing about it.
nothing felt forced at all. And comedy in Star Wars is really hard to pull off.
Yeah,
Honestly, it either gets really good or it just fails miserably.
definitely.
So I'm glad they were able to hit the notes correctly, because for Star Wars it's difficult.
Yeah. Are we missing anyone
Yeah.
else? Well, we've got.
No one significant. I mean, we can still talk about like Ray Sloan and like some other minor characters, but
I
Or
do,
Mr. Bones.
I do really like the character of Ray Sloan, but at the same time, the version of the character presented here is just kind of a heightened version of what you got in New Dawn. It's like there's nothing really new here. Like, this is a character who's generally defined by her loyalty to the Empire, by her legalist streak. But the thing is, she's not. It's like the thing that's interesting is the fact that she knows that the Empire is technically evil, but at the same time, her loyalty to it doesn't make her evil, because in her mind, it's the legitimate galactic government. It's the one that calls the shots. You either follow the law and obey, or you don't and you die, and that's all there is to it. Like, very classic lawful neutral, but a
yeah,
lawful
just very much
neutral.
so.
Yeah.
Phew, yeah.
Lawful neutral without being inhuman. Like, she's not bereft of compassion. She's not some horrible, cruel, vindictive Imperial officer. It's like the Grand Moff Jerjerrod, the guy from Return of the Jedi. The Return of the Jedi novelization basically painted that guy as a raging lunatic.
Oh man,
it's like
I remember
he
him.
it's like I was actually reading his entry on tvtropes.org, because he actually has an entry, because holy fuck, he's that horrible. He's basically a sociopathic soldier who joined the Empire for the violence, and basically just viewed the Galactic Civil War as the time of his life, because he saw the rebellion as so inferior to the Empire, just an enemy that they could bully without fear of repercussion. And then when the rebellion turned around and bit the Empire in the ass, that being the Battle of Endor, he basically just flips out and decides, well, I'm going to use the Death Star to blow up Endor because I'm an asshole. Fuck you. And it's like, this guy, the problem is that this guy is very standard. He's very par for the course for Imperial officers. There are so many officers in the Empire who are like that, because the Empire really likes having people who are like that. Whereas Ray Sloan is she's a nice change of pace. Like, she's a reminder that not all Imperial officers are douchebags. it's like she can be a douchebag, but she's not actively being a douchebag. Her life doesn't revolve around violence or exercising force or controlling people. She's just, I'm doing my job and I'm doing the best job I can possibly do, and that's what my life revolves around.
She's defined by her loyalty, not her cruelty.
Yeah.
Right. Sinjir even points that out to one of the dead soldiers on Endor. He's like, I like that kid. Like he was just trying to like appease everyone. He wasn't really a bad guy. And then he looked at another guy. He's like, yeah, that guy was a jerk. He was a douchebag, but he's dead.
Yeah. That's another thing the Empire. This book goes out of its way to show us too that with located in the Empire are just regular people. A lot of people. It even says, I think in the book, that a lot of the people who were part of the Stormtrooper Corps didn't actively volunteer. It was like a case of they were forced to go into the academy. Yeah, and a lot of them resented it for that. So very interesting, because they could have. What?
Sorry, I was going to say, and they didn't beat us over the head with it as well, because a lot of books will say, oh yeah, they're not all evil, and so it's like some big thing that no one gets. Like, it's it's just common sense.
They actually explain it.
Yeah. They both characters on both sides acknowledge the fact that the other side aren't completely evil. Because
which they don't really do in Rebels.
Yeah, no, they don't at all.
No, that's definitely black and white.
But it's good to see it not be like a moral story that we get smacked in the head with, because it's so obvious, and they all acknowledge it's obvious. But they bring it's written as though the character saying we have to remind ourselves, not we have to learn, because it's we already know it.
Mm-hmm.
Much more believable. Again, more natural.
Exactly. And well, as far as the other Moffs that are present, none of them stand out incredibly. There is the Palpatine's advisor, although I don't think we really talk about him without potentially getting into spoilers.
Spoiler,
I guess should we move into the droid?
Yeah,
we all love.
Mr.
Yeah,
Blows.
I mean, he wasn't really like he was just a cool character. He wasn't really like a main
he was
character.
So good. I loved him. He was a battle droid that Termin like outfitted, and holy crap, this dude's evil. This dude's
hilarious.
Like gleefully evil. Like, he is the definition of gleefully evil. Like, I think, isn't there a passage in the book that talks about how he's just slaughtering these groups of criminals, and he's like humming a droidmatic tune to himself? It's like
he's not so much evil as just kind of amoral. He's like, he was having the time of his life.
Yeah, he's amoral.
He's a droid. He doesn't know it's wrong. He's like, ooh, chaos and slaughter and
him with spinning with the blade. What's interesting is he kind of reminded me of the droids from Republic Commando. If you remember those ones,
assassin droids
from Republic Commando, they had like these blue tin too. I don't remember what their actual model number was, but they had like blades equipped to their arms. You fought them.
I know what those are. They're the grappler droids.
The grappler droids. He kind of reminded me of one of those things, because he's basically just a standard battle droid. But the difference was they, aside from the paint, they had like extra blades and extra armored plating. And Mr. Bones kind of reminded me of one of those, because it was talking about how, well, in Republic Commandos, when you fight those things, they're able to be a lot more maneuverable than the regular B1s.
They're also in the Revenge of the Sith video game.
Yes, they're a lot more maneuverable than the B1s, but they're also look similar to them. So I don't know. I always that's what Mr. Bones really reminded me of, at least in terms of look. He probably wasn't that kind of droid, but it just reminded me of it.
Yeah,
because they just point out he's a regular B1.
He also had sort of bones strapped to him, didn't he? His name is the Bones, which is a really nice touch. Questionable as to why Temin would do that, but whatever.
Well, it's the thing is that Mr. Bones is basically Temin's personal hitman and enforcer.
Yep. He's a bodyguard,
personal bodyguard. So he wants
/ best friend.
So yeah, he wants this droid to be as intimidating as possible. It's kind of the same reason, but. It's kind of the same reason behind General Grievous's design. Like his design, it's like he was deliberately designed to look like a frickin' skeleton in order to scare the shit out of people. It's like,
yeah, no, I'd forgotten that he was initially the bodyguard droid and Forza. I kind of forgot that part of it for some reason.
He would have to be with what he was getting himself into, Timin.
Yeah. And then they later in the book, when he loses his arm and
he gets
this is
wrong.
Yeah, he's so unhappy.
2-unit leg.
Yeah.
And he's swinging it around like a bludgeon.
This is inferior.
Yes, I was gonna say that he called it inferior. Yeah.
No, but then
I'm not astromech.
Well, what's cool is he even says, I could spin it and use it as a bludgeon, and I could better protect you, Master. I can smash skull. Jeez. It's like, ah, so
He's
endearing.
adorable as well. He's not just
is
like
adorable.
psychotic or hilarious. He's adorable. It's like, I will
Yeah.
protect you, master. Bones
Yeah,
do
he's,
good.
He's
endearing.
another one of those characters who, like Sloane, is just doing his job as well as he can possibly do it and trying to enjoy himself doing it as much as possible. If my job demands me to slaughter a whole room full of scum, then I'm going to slaughter them not only with glee but with aplomb.
I almost kind of wish he was the episode 7 droid now. Can you imagine?
Oh, like so
He's not-
BB-8
Instead of BB-8.
He's
That's
not-
what
he's
Ray
too adult
built.
for it, unfortunately. But but yeah, something like
That'd be
that. was fun.
fantastic, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, you want to get that kind of character in the movie. No.
No. But it's like.
Well, you
aw.
might get it in Rogue One. Rogue One, I don't know if you guys saw I mean, it's getting off topic, but there's some images that are extremely graphic.
Yeah. No. I'm
Well,
really,
we'll-
it's
we'll
going for
talk
the
about
whole
those
war
another
thing.
day.
Yeah.
Yeah, we would. It kind
about
of made
those
me wish
another
that this was the crew, but I thought obviously no, it's post Return of the Jedi. But still, I was like, this is the sort of crew I'd want to be in that film.
Yeah.
Well, maybe not actually because it's a war tone. But never mind. Sorry, I'm getting distracted.
And then
Yeah, no, sorry about that.
I guess the last character. Well, I guess one of the last characters we should talk about is the soldier who comes in towards the end.
yes.
What was
Yeah,
his
that
name
was the guy
again?
I was
Just the
trying to
fact that we
remember
forgot
before.
his name.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was very forgettable. He
His
really
opening
didn't do
scene
much.
though, with all they were doing
Oh,
a
yeah.
jump from
Yeah.
Were they doing it from the atmosphere?
Yeah.
On top of that, yeah,
No,
that was
no,
cool.
no.
That sequence was really.
That
I was like,
was-
huh.
Yeah.
I like visualized that as it was happening. I was like, this would be awesome if it was actually like either a TV show or if it was in a movie or something like that.
Just
And then just
imagine-
seeing his like comrades just vaporized in the
Picked
middle.
off one by
Oh,
one.
that was great. That was a great
It's the sort of
sequence.
thing I've imagined for Star Wars before because they never really touch on the whole dropping out of a ship. It's always
No.
landing the transport. I was like, why don't you just jump out and use a parachute?
Yeah,
They have
it
this
was in
technology.
Much harder to
detail.
shoot.
Yeah.
But the thing, it was very much like you said, very thematic, and you can visualize it really well because of the writing style. It felt very much like the Godzilla jump, that kind of. You can just imagine the
Yeah.
quietness of the wind and the
Definitely.
and suddenly yeah, but his character was fine. It was just kind of he came really late
When-
in and didn't do
Oh,
much.
yeah.
Yeah, he just came really late.
Yeah, it was like
Yeah.
nothing against
Oh.
him. I'm sure we'll be very interested in the
Yeah.
next books. But
Exactly. They'll develop him more in the next books. He did what he did. He did okay.
Mm.
Just wasn't much to him compared to everybody else. Can't really hold that against him, really.
no, it's nothing to do with the character, just the odd timing. And again, he'll bring
Yeah.
a new dynamic to the team. It'll be interesting to sort of explore how a more militarily focused character will gel with the rest of them.
Mm-hmm.
Or
It's
missing
very
something.
much like a D20 Star Wars campaign is what happened in the story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's again, but one of the reasons I liked it. Yeah.
Here's your pilot. Here's your scoundrel. Here's your soldier.
Here's your droid.
But again,
yeah,
it
here's your
didn't feel
droid.
forced.
And of course, the way they set up their characters is also a nice, interesting little reversal. Like, I think Sinjir is obviously the scoundrel character, yet where did this character come from? He's an Imperial loyalty officer. Who would have thunk it?
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah. That's what I love about it, though. It turns things on its head, and again, doesn't
Imagine if
force it. You expect the droid to come in and be, oh god, he's going to be filling HK-47's roles, and oh look, there's the smuggler, and oh look, there's that kind of thing. But no, it doesn't. They're new characters with different
Yeah.
spins. There are some minor characters I haven't spoken of, aren't they? Like Akbar, he was pretty cool.
Yeah, Akbar was in it. He did well.
He had a
for
lot
what
of
for what he
conflict
did.
because of what happened on Endor. He was like kind of shell shocked, so he didn't go into Akiva
Shell
initially.
shocked. I get it because he's a fish.
Think about
He
that.
was a lobster.
So it took him forever to decide to actually even go to Akiva. Well, he had people investigate like scouts and things like that, but
He was very hesitated because he didn't want a repeat of what happened at Endor because that almost meant the end of the alliance. And he even remarks the book goes heavy in the fact that it's not their new position isn't just weighing heavily on Mon Mothma, it's also weighing heavily on him. So he's has more reason to be like cautious on what's going on because one slip up and they're done.
Yeah, while Mon was up more on the political end, he was definitely the military head right now of the New Republic.
Yeah, and what's cool is you actually get to see him. Well, you don't get to see him fight, but you get to see. I liked the sequence where he was practicing his martial arts techniques. His Mon Calamari style of fighting with. What was his weapon again? Some like bone thing.
Staff
Like a
thing.
staff,
I can't
yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty. It was just cool seeing because that's something a lot of people forget. Admiral Akbar can fight. He can actually fight pretty well.
Yeah, he wanted
So-
to keep his physical mind sharp so that his mental mind would be also sharp as well.
So I was really good. I was really gratified to see that they included that because they could have just had him be just another Politico like Mon Mothma, so I was happy to
An-
see. I was like,
An
again,
armchair general.
exactly. But
Yeah,
again, like kind of like how Wedge felt like Wedge, and Mon Mothma felt like Mon Mothma, Akbar felt like Akbar, and it's like, yes, this is who this character is. He is willing to fight, and he would naturally be cautious after certain events like these. So again, makes perfect sense.
Yeah, it's done
Gels
really
with
well
everything.
again. Yeah, and the new character, kind of not really touched upon, but Aliyah or Aliyah or whatever you want to call her, kind of handling the Leia
Adi-
Organa role.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
She was interesting.
Oh, are you referring to Adia, Ray Sloane's assistant?
No, the Aliyah, the one who was getting the reporter perspective.
Yeah, the
Oh,
news.
Wow.
The
The one
Oh,
who was
wow.
on, yeah.
Yeah,
she was pretty cool too. I really liked the sequence where well, like there's a really good sequence where they were planning to parade some captured Imperials across the planet, and she was like, "What the hell
Nope.
are you doing?" No, she was like, "Well, not like the Alliance, like what the hell are you doing? We are not the Empire. We are not gonna parade these people around like they're freaking cattle. You set them free. You put them in prison. We are not gonna gratify this. We should not be." I think she even says, this should not be something we're proud of, and it's right. And again,
Yeah.
this is what the Alliance's whole thing is. They're not the Empire. They're not the kind of people that would, subjugate these Imperials and show them off. Like, hey, look what we did. Like, no, that's not what they would do. So, it was really gratifying to see that mentality reinforced with her. And again, it felt very real. It felt like
Yeah.
how someone would react to this.
I mean,
Right,
even
war
as
is
she-
a
sorry.
war is a failure of government, and the Republic knew that. They didn't think, oh, hey, war is something, a necessity, so that we can just tighten our grasp on our people. No, it's like for the Republic, it's like, no, like war is when we messed up, and that's when we have to reassess.
Yeah, and they acknowledge
Like in
that
real life.
it's again with the whole realistic approach. They acknowledge that it's a flaw of democracy. It's messy. It's
Mhm.
that's
Yep.
why that was happening, because someone decided that we'll do it, and then no, we won't. That's wrong. Democracy at play. And the other scene earlier in the book when was it Trandoshan? I think it was a Trandoshan. Yeah.
Yeah.
Threw a fruit at her, and she was like, "Nope, come here, please." Brought him on
Yeah,
camera.
brings him
and
over,
said,
talks to him very
What's
like,
the,
why are
what's the
you
issue?
Yeah, what's wrong?
She
What's
actually
the
like,
issue?
why are you upset? What's wrong?
Yeah, and then when he describes the situation as like it's bad, because he was honest. He shouldn't have thrown the fruit, obviously, but he was kind of expecting the sort of Empire approach and them to be oppressive and someone who deserves to have the fruit thrown at them. And then she brings him in, talks about what problems he has, and then says, "You should come and sit in the Senate we're about to have." And he's like, just carrying a basket
What?
of fruit. It's like, that's the kind of
That's
thing the New Republic's
that's
gonna do.
fantastic. That was very touching.
Yeah, I liked it.
Yeah. Any other characters? Non-spoiler related.
Uh,
I mean, Sloane's assistant, but there wasn't much really to her either. Aside, she was kind of like her in the fact that she was fanatically loyal as well. And then
But
she
to
got
Sloan,
yeah, and then she got beaten up by Wedge.
She was interesting in so much of that scene, actually, because you didn't really know where she was coming from initially. Like, she was loyal, but it wasn't like she was the blindly loyal servant. She kind of had her own
Right.
ambitions as well. It was like, so where are they going to take her? And then they kind of show the whole Wedge scene, and later
Kind of
you see,
shelved her for the rest of the book.
Yeah, she was interesting. Just didn't have much happen to her. I could see her becoming someone in the future. Keep an eye
is
on.
it just me? But the impression I got is that Adia was kind of in denial about having a lesbian crush on Ray Sloane, because it's like it basically establishes first thing. It's like chapter 19, end of the first little blurb. It's like she's basically yearning for the admiral's approval, and then the very next scene, which is told from. And it's like she sees the admiral step out of the shower completely naked, and she just doesn't care. It's like you got to be when you're at the point where you're able to be in the same room as someone else while they're naked and be completely comfortable. It's like either you're truly completely asexual, or you actually do like this person a lot and actually want on some sort of romantic relationship with them. It's just like you're trying to get there by just not commenting. It's like trying to say, you can trust me. I'm not going to be all up in arms about the fact that you just stepped out of the shower. Who cares?
Well, she did blush. She was very much the whole like Sloane mentions, or she's talking to herself in the head. That she was civilian. You know, she's used to doing it because it's just a military efficiency. You know, you're in the Navy. That's the sort of thing you do. It's practical. There's
You
no,
see everybody naked.
Yeah, there's no
in the
romantic
military.
element to it. It's just clinical. But
True.
then she's like blushing. It's like, oh, I forget that she's civilian. But yeah, I do definitely agree that she has. It's definitely vaguely hinted that she's interested because she said you talked about admiration a lot. How she wants the admiration of the admiral and stuff. Admiration of the admiral. I found it funny when they put that in the sentence. But yeah, no, that was interesting. It was nice to read such a natural scene as well. It wasn't something that was forced. That it didn't feel like they wrote that scene to get that point across or make that point. It was just something that happened, and then we analyze it in hindsight. You know, it wasn't blowing in our faces, which I like. Same again as well. I picked up on Sinjir being gay before it was sort of declared in the book.
Yeah.
Well, he talks about someone else being the guy, the young kid who he saw that was dead, and he said he liked him, and he talked about someone else being beautiful. I forget who he was speaking about.
That's why I picked up on it. It was saying the beautiful, handsome face of the person he beat up. I mean, I'm going to slap a spoiler alert right at the start because we've just been talking about spoilers the entire time now. Yeah, our bad, sorry. But yeah, that scene pretty much declared it, and then later on, there's the whole thing with
the jazz.
Yeah. Well, that's another thing. Yeah, well, that's another thing in this book. There are several homosexual characters, and some people have been throwing a shit fit about that for reasons I don't know.
No one's really been doing a fit. It's just that people have been like making a big thing out of it when this book makes a very point not to make a big point of it.
No,
it's just part
ridiculous.
of the story.
Yeah, which is of course the point.
It's 2015, people. You shouldn't be making a big deal about these things at this point.
If you are, then you're contributing to the problem.
Bingo.
I'd say it. And I actually think that's actually kind of one of the problems with not with the book itself, but with its marketing campaign. Apparently, the author was making a big deal about how there are apparently homosexual characters in here, and I'm like,
wasn't that Tolkien?
why is this a?
Did they do it for
No,
this one as well?
that wasn't this one.
Oh, really?
No.
That was the
I knew it was
Lords of the Sith.
Lords of the
I
Sith,
knew-
not Tolkien's
I
well,
knew-
yeah. I was thinking administration.
Okay, sorry. It's just I read an article talking about that, and it references this book, so it's like, oh, okay, whatever. But yeah. It's like, you know, if in that case I'm totally confused, don't know where I'm going with this, but still, it's like, you know, that sort of thing just isn't something that should be a selling point for a book because it's just a character trait. Who the fuck cares? We're in an era where you know, sleep with who you want. We don't care.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
It's
a
like
gimmick.
Yeah, and it's not like they're heavily on. Like you said, Sinjin's gay, and then
The
Nora
aunts.
notes that her. Huh?
The aunts.
Yeah, I was about to say Nora's sister has a wife, so Termin has 2 aunts. But again, it's like whatever. There's also during one of the cutaways, that orphan kid who remarks that his dads were killed by the Empire. So, but again, it's like it's brief. It's like it's so what?
Yeah.
It talks about it casual. As it should be. It shouldn't be not casual.
Is that a
Quite
big thing?
casual.
I'm wondering in the UK, is that a big thing? Because I know here, because of the way
It's not,
our
no.
country was established, yeah, I thought so.
We find it
because
hard to make a big deal about anything here.
I think it's also because of our American or North American society, the kinds of people who founded or came over and established settlements in this country. They have such a thing about that it's such a thing in today's world. Because I don't think even back in ancient times, like if you look at the Greeks or the Romans, like that wasn't even a huge deal. Like, oh, you sleep with men, all right, cool. Like, it wasn't
It's very much kind of post-Victorian.
Apparently even back in the damn Middle Ages, like homosexuality was just something that no one cared about. Like there are actual records of priests officiating marriages between guys. It's like, no one cared. That's just something people did.
Yeah,
it wasn't
it's
until
very
like the
much a
Puritans came
post-Victorian
around
thing,
that
as
it
far
was
as
a
I'm
thing.
aware.
Yeah, exactly. Post-Victorian, exactly.
That's where all the crazy starting to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, all right, so we're in spoilers now, right?
Yeah, I'll
guess
put a spoiler warning at the start saying we failed.
Yeah.
We've really failed to keep the spoilers out of this one.
It's hard. It's hard.
Okay.
But it's 'cause it's a character.
Possibly.
The problem that's the problem with how this book is such a character piece. It's like you can't discuss these characters without discussing spoilers
Exactly.
because it's like basically it's like this is a book that's all about being about characters and world building. That's all there is to it, and the only way you can discuss those things is by spoiling the book itself.
Right. And with that side, I say, since we're in spoilers now, and let's start off with a broader term, let's talk about the shape the galaxy is in, like just during the time of this book, because it takes place several months after Return of the Jedi. Death Star's been destroyed, Emperor's killed, Vader's killed, and well, you okay, Antoine?
Yeah, I'm good.
Well, not even
Okay.
several, is it? It's like it's a few months.
Yeah, I know, a
Yeah.
couple months.
Sorry,
Sorry.
Well, it does kind.
of.
Yeah, it does kind of the way the Empire is on the defensive. They are starting to fray at the edges, and it's like it kind of goes back to something I found out about in the EU. It's the fact that Palpatine deliberately created the Galactic Empire to be a bureaucratic mess, with him as the only thing that was holding it together. The idea being that he wanted to make his positions. He wanted to make it so that no one would dare try to assassinate him for fear of the complete anarchy that would result, because without him around to keep the Empire functioning, the Empire would just fly apart. But, guess what? The Rebel Alliance doesn't really care. In fact, to them, the Empire flying apart at the seams is the best thing that could happen, because guess what? Now we have an easier time taking the galaxy back. And you know what? And the other thing that the other possibility that's opened up is how many Imperial officers, after going warlord, decide, hey, I think I'd rather join the New Republic.
Several. That's another thing the book
it's-
points out. Like, there were a lot of defectors, and I mean a lot.
Yeah,
Which makes sense.
yeah,
Yes.
it's another thing that kind of happened when the first Death Star destroyed Alderaan. It's like crossing that moral event horizon. Basically, got so many people who were otherwise loyal to the Empire going, wait. If the Empire's willing to do this, fuck those bastards. It's like basically every single Imperial officer from Alderaan defected to the Alliance overnight. A whole bunch of worlds that were on the fence about being loyal or rebelling instantly rebelled. And a lot of worlds that had been longtime loyalists also decided to rebel. Because basically ruling through fear only works if the people have something to lose. The problem with the Death Star is it's such extremely ridiculous. It's ridiculously excessive, and it's so excessive that basically people who find themselves on the receiving end of that kind of treatment have nothing to lose by rebelling, because even if they do nothing and stay loyal, they could be killed along with everyone else just because they happen to be on a planet that the Empire has decided to blow up. It's like, so you're going to kill me anyway just because I'm in your way. Well, fuck you.
Yeah, you've also taken away the sort of layer of safety the planet represents, just that pure level. Because if you go into a starship or a fighter in a battle, you've got a much higher chance of dying than if you're on a peaceful, like, I don't know, Naboo or Alderaan. A planet is safe in most people's eyes. Take that away, then the entire galaxy is now a danger zone.
Yep, nothing to lose, exactly. And I will say this, something I was happy to see in the book. I was worried going into this that they were gonna have the Empire just be completely like just destroyed. Like, I was worried that they were gonna treat what happened in Return of the Jedi as like literally the complete collapse of the Empire. There would be like no control, no nothing. But I am happy that they still may know, like we said earlier, it's half galaxy, half galaxy. It's not just a case of everything falling apart instantly, because I feel, like I said, that was just a general worry of mine, and I'm happy that they, put those fears to bed.
That's what one of the Moffs was even proposing, is that how we just split the galaxy in half.
One of the
We
Moffs
have
suggests they go out into the unknown regions and just get like.
There's actually a lot going on with the unknown. Do we want to talk about the unknown regions?
Let's save that.
Okay.
Well, should we?
Let's talk about it. I'm already
Okay.
There's a sequence. Okay, here I have it prepped right
Talk
here.
about the sequence. Yeah.
So it says
Wedge
no
mentions as
Sith.
well.
So does he. It says, no Sith remain, Tashu says, and the lone Jedi that exists, the son of Anakin Skywalker, possesses an untouchable soul, which I thought was pretty cool, at least for now. We must instead look toward the dark side. Palpatine felt that the universe beyond the edges of our maps was where his power came from, which is kind of cool because that's how it was in the Old Republic, and that's kind of cool they had that in there. Over the many years, he, with our aid, sent men and women beyond known space, which makes me think about Thrawn. They built labs and communication stations on distant moons, asteroids out there in the wilds. We must follow them. Retreat from the galaxy, go out beyond the veil of stars. We must seek the source of the dark side, like the man looking for a wellspring of water. And then that's another thing with his metaphors again that I thought was like kind of bad. It was like there's a lot of that. But yeah, like that got me really stoked. And then just for that advisor to be there in that meeting at all. Like I
Yeah.
thought was pretty nice. And then there's even Terrace is in this book as well, bringing in another thing from the Old Republic.
Whew.
And there's some like cultists there that are like
Yeah, you see
buying.
on Terrace, like there are these people, like you said, these cultists in like black robes who are buying a knockoff. I mean, it's never said it's a knockoff, but I think it's definitely a knockoff
Or one of
of
these
Darth
broken
Vader's
lost
of
ones.
Darth Vader's lightsaber from a shifty bounty hunter, and like when like these people are obsessed with that thing.
Yeah.
And when the bounty hunter asks, like, what are you gonna do with it? And they're like, we're gonna destroy it. And he's like, why? It's like so it could return to the master. And even the bounty hunter's just like,
Crazy.
all right.
All right,
I'm just
for
gonna
the
take my money
credits.
and go. Yeah. So, and then like, I've actually talked with this about with some other people earlier. The way they're going about this really echoes because, how do I explain it? Darksiders worshiping Vader after he died is something that has been in several EU stories. You have Lumaya who viewed Vader as like basically this symbol of power. You had Cedrus, who highly respected Vader and what he did. And then you have some of the Dark Acolytes who built a freaking statue of him in his castle. So one of my theory, like when I read this, like I thought like, okay, maybe in episode 7, what we'll see with the First Order is basically all these like Vader worshippers coming together under the Empire. Basically, it would be an echo. It would basically be an echo of what they did in Dark Empire, where you have what was the group called that Palpatine's group of Dark Jedi? What were they called in Dark Empire?
The dark side elite.
Exactly. You basically have like something like the Dark Side Elite. You'd have these people who are fanatically loyal and just worship Palpatine and Vader and have actually actual dark side powers and whatnot, and under the rule of the Empire.
It's been said too that explicitly been said that Kylo Ren is a worshiper of Vader.
Yes.
Down
And
to
then
his mask. Like the reason why he wears his mask isn't because he has some breathing problem or anything like that. He just does it because it's like a symbol, just like how samurai wore their armor not just for protection but also to put fear in their enemies. And I like that that's being. And I'm wondering if these cultists might have something to do with Kylo Ren or just
like
all these
are the
people.
Knights of Ren like a byproduct
Right.
of these worshippers coming together? Like, what's the deal with that?
I imagine.
I think that's one of the tidbits that we're going to get because the book, one of the premises of this book is that, hey, you're going to get a lot of tidbits about episode 7. So like
And you
things in
do.
here. Yeah, you do, so I think this could be one of them. So
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense like for these Vader worshippers to come together under the Empire again, because it's not an unprecedented story, so it probably could work.
Oh, one thing I had a little criticism about the book is that I felt like some of the Imperials knew a little bit too much about Palpatine possibly being Sidious. Like I thought, I get it for the advisor because he's totally all about that, but for some of them, they seem to like. It was supposed to be Vader that everybody thought was
They suspected.
Yeah, they suspect him, but I know some of them like thought it was more than suspect. I know Sloan said that it was a rumor and she didn't really know to believe it or not, but like it was always supposed to be Vader who was the one who was like that weird Force guy,
Which they even
and then
establish in
Palpatine was
Dark
just-
Lords, don't they? You have to be the face of
Yeah,
it. I can't be.
exactly. Yeah, and with that
Exactly.
establishment, I was like, hey, why the Imperials should not?
Yeah, what's
when
weird
that
is-
Palpatine is a Sith,
Yeah,
Sith
the
Lord.
Imperials go on and on about Palpatine, but Vader's almost never mentioned with them.
Well,
with
because
them.
to them, he's there as the snobby elite. Like the people in the Death Star, they just see him as an enforcer, or saw him as an enforcer.
True.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
they
saw,
just
yeah,
don't care
past
as
tense.
much. But
True. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I think it is when you are dealing with the people in the upper echelons of power within the Empire. It's like, they see Vader as just an enforcer, probably just some ex-Jedi that Palpatine conscripted, whatever. Who gives a shit?
Yeah.
So it's like, it's Palpatine himself being the Force wielder that's going to be attracting most of their interest, even if it's only a rumor. Because if Palpatine is a Sith Lord, that or a Force wielder of any denomination, that completely changes the nature of his relationship with the Jedi Order, and it also suggests the possibility that the Clone Wars and the takeover of the Empire had been orchestrated well in advance, which is something we know for a fact, but is something that most of the galaxy doesn't know, and even when it's made public knowledge, a lot of people kind of still question it.
Like, really? He was a
Yeah.
Sith? I don't know.
Yeah.
I never saw it coming
Yeah.
with that creepy hood. First
Well-
Galactic Empire. That was
But
terrible.
yeah, it's like
you have just someone in the Senate just like what's going on with the Chancellor's face? Anybody?
Yeah, waving
Well,
away all our
it's-
power, giving it all over to this one person. Woo!
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like we get the same. It's like it kind of goes by something I remember reading in Luke Skywalker and the Shadows of Mindor. All the the holodramas and the movies produced based on the events of Return of the Jedi in universe, which basically just kind of showed a very twisted version of events where it's like Luke Luke and Vader killed the Emperor together, or Luke kills them both himself. It's like, which kind of tells you that a lot of the galaxy really hasn't quite accepted the whole idea of Vader's so-called redemption. It's like, even if they accept the idea that he was once Anakin Skywalker, a lot of them are still kind of in doubt about the whole idea of Vader actually redeeming himself, because all they can think about when people say Vader is, horrific war criminal, entire worlds burned at his command, a mass murdering lunatic who killed his own officers for slights. And then being told that, oh, he redeemed himself. He stepped up to defend his son and killed the Emperor. Yeah, right. That's a load of bullshit.
Right.
It doesn't matter what Luke says on the matter, because this is what a lot of people are going to continue believing, and this kind of goes into the Darksiders worshiping Darth Vader. They refuse to believe they redeemed himself because they can't possibly accept the idea that the guy who has essentially been the symbol of the dark side of the Force for the better part of 20 years should suddenly decide to reject what he basically spent his entire life standing for and furthering. It's like, no, that's bullshit. It's just Luke trying to feed us Jedi propaganda. Fuck that Jedi bastard.
And even for people of the forgiving nature of the Jedi, I mean, even it's like Matt says. I mean, Vader barely got a redemption. It wasn't like he was like, oh yeah, you're fine, yeah, you're good now. It was like first step, but then he died. So, acknowledge the first step because he died. But apart from that,
yeah.
I think actually it'd be cool if we had like kind of like a Rita Skeeter reporter character, like trying to dive into like the mysteries of Palpatine and Vader. Like I think that'd be kind of a cool story. I don't know if anyone would ever do it, but like just have like a side character who's like, I like, who gets it completely right, but people think like that person's crazy or something like that. I think that'd be pretty interesting, I think.
If anyone watching this is working on a fan fiction, take notes.
Oh yeah, for real. Nowadays.
Wait, what?
I don't know. What I say? I didn't say anything. What did I say?
Okay. Before we continue, can I just also, something else I really liked? When they were discussing strategies possibly from winning back the Imperial people, one of them suggests they use a doppelganger of Palpatine as a way to like rally people in, and that's something from the EU. They actually did that. They actually had in the EU it wasn't a doppelganger, it was a hologram, but still like using Palpatine's image as a way of like converting people. I just took joy in seeing that.
Yeah, and they already had tried to do that, but people were like not believing it. That they had like the stand-ins trying to like say, no, I'm not dead, I'm still here. Like, no, that was a person. Like they had I guess systems that like could tell, like they cross-reference and could tell it wasn't him. Mannerisms and all that kind of stuff.
That was one of the things.
Yeah.
So I would say that was one of the things about the book as a whole, though. The author clearly respects and is extremely knowledgeable of the EU, because there are so many hints. I mean, this doesn't override anything, and it makes lots of hints to all the previous canon. Legends,
unlike Dark Disciple, which we discussed earlier.
Yeah, it's the exact opposite.
This is respectful. This is respectful to Legends in a way that
we thought was going to be the case in the first place.
But it wasn't.
And this is how they should move forward, because this is a story that they've told well without erasing anything, and even filling in gaps, because this is something that it's very, very firmly placed between the end of Return of the Jedi and the start of the Thrawn trilogy. Yep. And works in that regard.
Yep.
And going off of what I was saying earlier about liking the interludes better, like one of my favorite things was seeing Han and Chewie about to liberate Kashyyyk, and I was like, can I just get that book, please? Can I like continue reading that? Can we not cut away from here? Like I would love to see and I didn't realize that only there was only a handful of Wookiees that were liberated at that point. Like that was in the novel. Oh, I thought you guys all froze again. I was like, no,
we can have this one without you disconnecting. Come on.
And I was like, oh wow, that's very interesting. And I didn't think about that, like how, because the Empire was very adamant about enslaving the Wookiees, and I thought that was cool.
Which further
to see that novel.
Unleashed.
Yeah, I know that was a big thing.
Further retcons, unfortunately. So good for that one, right, Callan?
Win.
Callan is like determined to have like all traces of the Force Unleashed just erased.
I'm very sure that will be a novel. Probably not in the Aftermath series, but probably like as a separate thing. And I can't wait to read that novel.
I actually like the Force Unleashed, so that'll just be like a little part. When the Force Unleashed is officially retconned, a little bit of me is going to die.
Aww.
I'm sorry.
So it kind of already is.
Rebels is kind of already sort of possibly over.
Well, It's
It's like
I read that
It's like
one.
Starkiller just comes in season 2 of Rebels. What's up?
That'd be really cool though if he just showed up.
Or yeah, Callan's reaction would just be like, "Oh man,
Shoot.
that'd be great."
That'd be my
Shoot.
reaction.
Oh man. I, had a-
There's a
I was saving a point, but I can't remember what it was now.
keep remembering. I also like the bounty hunter interlude where they had Dengar.
Yeah, Dengar.
Yeah, fighting this new bounty hunter. And at one point the bounty hunter goes like, Boba Fett, and he's like, what?
Yeah.
How'd you fall for that?
I was imagining that as like a really overdramatic kind of anime style fight, like the panning cut of a long shot. Whoops.
Oh, shit.
Panning cut from a long shot with the roof of the rooftop,
headphones
like
fell off.
silhouettes in the darkness, lightning striking as the camera pans across, again, zooming in on their faces. Because the way that's written is just so over the top. It's like it's Dengar.
Yeah,
It was a good fight though.
it is very
Yeah, it was cool.
exaggerated.
But it was interesting interlude. But again, it was
Yeah.
completely out of nowhere.
So, well, here's the thing though, like, since Dengar reacted that way, it kind of means that Boba Fett's probably not going to be coming back because he should know Boba Fett's alive because he was the one who rescued him from the Sarlacc pit.
Right. So at this point, they're playing very coy with Boba Fett's demise or not
is
demise.
He dead? Is he not dead? It's like that's the thing. Dengar should know Boba's alive because around this timeline, Boba Fett's already escaped. He was only in the Sarlacc for like a week.
Yeah.
It was also established. It was also established in the classic EU that Dengar was actually the one who originally rescued Boba Fett. The two of them were actually. It's like they did have their spats, but overall, the two of them were actually really tight. Like Boba Fett was the best man at Dengar's wedding.
Yeah. So like that, like it just kind of wonders. It's like is like you said, Antoine, they're playing
coy. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like we like. They never even stayed out flat that he's dead.
Right,
so.
because even in the Tatooine thing, they have like some Mandalorian armor that's like there that the sheriff was like.
Jawas have.
Yeah, the Jawas have, and the sheriff was there, and I like that idea, like that Tatooine's now like a new frontier for the sheriff to like tame and stuff like that. I thought that was pretty cool. Like all the interludes to me were so interesting.
Yeah, let's talk about those now.
Blaster revolver.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Let's talk about all the interludes now, or at least the good ones.
The ones that we haven't touched on yet.
There was the orphans on. Were they on Naboo? Yeah, they were on
that
Naboo.
was heartbreaking. I was like, no, don't leave your friend. No,
Yeah.
stay with Streak. Oh, that was a
really
beautiful
sad.
friendship that could have lasted forever and just down the drain. Literally down the drain.
Yeah, that was probably the weakest interlude, if you ask me.
Yeah, I was gonna say that too. I was gonna say like that's the only one that was like, that's a bit too far off. Like that doesn't really fit.
Yeah.
I
Oh, and I will
actually
say
like the
this. I
one.
don't know
They
if it
just-
counts as an interlude, but the book begins with everybody celebrating on Coruscant, and then the Empire trying to quiet everything. And what's cool is they literally make note of the fact that they're taking chunks of statue, the one they pull down in Return of the Jedi, like the Palpatine statue, and they're throwing them at the Empire. The soldiers trying to gas them. It's like, dang, like that's pretty
And the
awesome.
Empire just mows them down. They're like, all right, you're gonna throw stones at us?
Well, not even
And then,
before
like,
throwing stones. They mow them down, and that brings the stone throwing.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That is not an effective crowd control. This is a planet
No,
we're
it
trying to
isn't.
tame. This is not like one place. This
And
entire
it's a
planet is
city
going to be
planet.
rebelling if you're not careful.
Yeah, and it does answer the question about, the infamous, why is Coruscant celebrating if it's the capital of the Empire? It's like, what do they do with that? It's like, oh, this is the reaction.
Yep.
It's like, that's fantastic.
Then it shows up again where the kid's like, well, my dads are dead, so let me like set bombs under, I think, the Capitol building. I can't remember what he was
Yeah,
trying to blow up.
13. Oh, yeah, there's the two. 1313. District 1313 is in this book for
Yeah,
Coruscant.
it was in
It was in
Dark
Dark
Disciple as well.
Disciple as well. I noticed
It's
that,
so
yeah.
great
It
seeing
keeps going up.
1313 because like
That means-
I like everyone else really wanted that game.
Yeah, they said there might still be dealing it. I don't know.
Better.
But before we move on, because I'll miss the point otherwise. What did you think of them moving the Senate? Not with it not being on
Yes.
Coruscant.
I think that's
being
good.
Yeah, it makes sense because they don't have the resources to take Coruscant right now, and they have to have it somewhere.
Yeah, see that was one thing I liked for both a symbolic point in this book, but
On
also
off this
realistically.
whole planet.
Yeah, I like how for starters that's great. It's a good rallying point for the philosophical idea behind what they're trying to do. But also I like that again it's a point between this and Thrawn, because at Thrawn trilogy they've recaptured Coruscant, and it's the center of the galaxy in it, because they've not decided, oh, we'll make this the center of the galaxy now. They're keeping Coruscant as the capital because they just haven't taken it back yet. I love that they acknowledge that, because it makes perfect sense for Coruscant to be the capital because it is the center, and
Literally.
all of the routes and everything, all the political side, everything is already built into Coruscant being the capital. So
Yeah.
you don't move it. But they did because of the reasoning in the
Yeah.
book. It wasn't
Not
like a
because they
throwaway thing.
wanted to, because they had to.
Yeah, it wasn't like a throwaway
It
thing.
was-
It's like, we're just going to move Coruscant, or move the capital, rather.
Yeah.
It was just a logistical thing. It's like Coruscant's the official capital, which will be our capital once we take over. But in the meantime, Chandrilla, everyone.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Although it is kind of a shame. I actually kind of wanted to see the Senate summit, and you don't.
Yeah, you never. But that's probably
That was a
it's
bit of a
it's a
bummer.
trilogy, so that's
No, I get
definitely-
it. I
yeah.
get it. I was just like, I would have liked it to maybe just at the very least
little bit.
have Mon Mothma like let the first session of the new Senate begin, like something like that. It's like that kind of would have been more, or have that Trandoshan like is sitting in his pod, like still trying to get used to everything.
It's like,
Yeah, it's
I
like
guess I'm
that was
representing my people.
That is a big Senate, and he's just, holding some fruit, and it's like, okay, I'll represent a planet.
Yeah.
a planet that I don't even hail from as a Trandoshan.
Yes, I know, which I found hilarious. It's like, okay.
No, but
Spirit of
like
the New
that's
Republic.
that's kind of a bummer. That would have been a cool way to finish things off. It's like because they were building up to it so much.
Well, we
You
had the
know.
walk up the stairs, which I liked. The whole symbolic,
Yeah,
welcome to the new era. This is the New Republic, and then it sort of, if you
Oh,
imagine
yeah.
the camera panning to the crowd of them all just
Yeah.
walking up the steps, like Mon Mothma leading the charge and
Yeah,
music playing.
that's good. But I just would have liked to have seen them in there, like have Mothma convene everything. Like
Yeah.
that could have been the ending for the book. They could have been like, like I said earlier, Mon Mothma, let's begin.
Yeah, well, like Anton says,
That
it'll
would've
definitely
been
be something
cool.
that comes up later in the trilogy, and I imagine there'll
It
be like an
better.
Empire Strikes Back thing next book, because everything ends on a high here, and then almost with the same ceremony as the sort of thing they had in New Hope, and then in the
Yeah.
second book there'll
Could
be
be
like,
the Empire coming back in some
Yeah, and-
capacity, with maybe Rey or something.
I
coming
mean,
back.
well, what's interesting is like they note that the Empire still has one Super Star Destroyer left.
Mhm.
It's the last Super Star Destroyer, which, if I'm not, is that pulled from the EU?
no, they had
like
multiple
there was one.
ones because the Republic
Yeah, I was like, I'm
captured them.
pretty sure they still had multiple ones. I just wasn't entirely sure.
Well, the Republic could have already captured them, but I feel like with the resources they have at the moment, I doubt they have done at this point. But in the EU, they did capture a bunch of Super Star Destroyers and slapped a
Yeah,
Rebel
well,
logo on
that's.
it.
I will say this. I mean, that kind of makes sense because Superstar Destroyers aren't just something you could casually try and take control of.
yeah,
no,
you-
definitely not. But it was after they'd won, and like after the Truce Core and stuff like this, I'd pick those things up, so it made a bit more sense. And then they developed their own. But
Hmm.
but yeah, it's,
I also like the Jakku interlude, and the guy, like the bartender's like,
Oh,
if the war
yeah.
comes here, I'll buy you all the knockback nectars you want. It's like, now we're gonna play Battlefront, and we're gonna see that there's battle there. So
Yeah. But it makes me wonder, like, what influence that guy is going to
I
be playing,
know.
if any. Is he going to be like Ray's dad or something, or?
I didn't even think about that.
I found it interesting they had two characters named Ray as well. Obviously,
Yeah, it is kind of.
Yeah.
It is kind of
I
like.
mean,
well,
R-A-E and R-E-Y?
yeah,
Ray? Is that the two you're referring to? Okay.
yeah. It's
Yeah.
like it seemed odd that they've new
Distracting.
EU like 100 characters max they've got already, and they've already got two
That are
prominent characters with the same
overlapping.
name.
Yeah.
Seemed
I think
a
that's
bit odd.
because New Dawn, I think, was written before Ray's name came out. So I guess when John Jackson Miller was doing it, he's like, oh, Ray's, and that sounds like a cool name. And
yeah.
Either that or Ray
Then,
could
then
be
he
her.
saw the trailer and was like, "Well,
then, what?
what would you say?"
That Ray is Ray Sloan.
Yeah, she got younger as
She
time went
de-aged, yeah.
by. Yeah.
Yeah, the
Oh, she's a
light side does some
changeling.
wonderful
She's a
things.
changeling.
Have you seen what it does?
Changeling.
Have you seen what it did? The light side of the light side of the dark. The light side of the Force did for Satil.
Yeah, but it kept her young. It
Oh,
didn't
I see.
regress her. It didn't. The light side can't regress.
Yeah, but she wasn't a
you.
Skywalker, so you know.
So,
Yes,
so
I know that makes no
it's a-
sense. I'm
Ray,
just being stupid.
Ray Sloan is actually it's a hiding her Ray Skywalker parentage.
That she couldn't
Oh,
possibly be that old.
God.
Wait, I know,
Jar
that's
Jar.
completely impossible.
No.
Unless she's a time traveling Force user.
Somehow older than Luke. Yeah.
Oh
yeah.
dear.
Sorry.
Okay. What are the? Oh, there was that interlude with the father and his two sons at the dinner table.
Oh yeah, that was cool. That was just more showing the establishment of the difference
Yeah.
between the Republic and the Empire, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that was an
And on
interesting scene.
Bespin, there was one on Bespin too. Well, where this gangster just gets his shit kicked in, which I loved seeing. It's like, yeah, take that.
Oh, yeah, that was one of the things that I thought was cool establishment is that the Empire kind of backed criminal organizations. Like even in Shadows of the Empire, like Palpatine had dealings with Black Sun and all that, or
Prince Izor.
yeah, with Prince Izor, I love that character.
Who Prince Izor actually even considered himself the third most powerful person in the galaxy behind Vader and Palpatine.
Yeah, which he kind of was, So I mean, especially when the Empire was so okay with criminal organizations at that point. So, and it was cool like that. Oh, and also like plays into the Tatooine and the sheriff because he's like, oh, now the job is dead and this New Republic's coming around. They're gonna start cracking down on these criminals.
Which made me wonder: are they gonna keep to the thing that Bib Fortuna survived, or is that swept under the rug now because he did?
I don't know.
Well, regarding the Empire's relationship with criminal organizations, that is kind of in keeping with how they function, though, because the Empire is not like so many people look at the Death Star and think, oh, Empire is a force for destruction. They destroy anything that gets in their way. No, what the Empire really, really, really wants at the core of its being is control over you. And dealing with criminal organizations on their own terms is actually the best way to control them. Palpatine doesn't want to just eradicate the criminal organizations. He wants to assimilate them into the Empire itself. And it's kind of the same with a lot of other groups. It's like, obviously, if the Empire has no use for you, they'll destroy you without a second's hesitation. But if they do have a use for you, that's the point when they're going to actually start being kind of delicate because they don't want to just oppress you. They want to assimilate you. They want to bring you into the fold. And before long, you realize that half of the guys working for you are Imperial officers, and that if the Empire doesn't like your leadership of this organization, they'll just axe you and replace you with one of their own.
Yeah, that was a huge part of the book is the Empire having control. Like that was a huge thing that the New Republic kept referencing, and then the summit they had, it was all about
the infighting between the Moffs.
Yeah,
and like how the Grand Moff gave himself a promotion.
Yes, I was that particular thing. I don't know for sure, but I wonder if that's going to integrate with the Shattered Empire comic book series because part of the storylines is about the Moffs having a lot of infighting, and I'm wondering if he's going to be in it because he actually survives into the next book because he wasn't on the ship when they crashed. Yeah. But not when they crashed, but when they crashed onto I forget what happened in that action sequence. They crashed into a hangar, didn't they?
Yeah.
I'm wondering if that's him taking that mantle is going to be in the comic book because that's what part of the storyline's about.
Him and Sloane were bumping heads, and they both survived. So
yeah,
possible, but it is cool because they address just how much infighting there was.
Oh yeah,
big time infighting. Yeah, and they're all although it is what?
No, sorry, you can.
No, that's fine.
I was just going to say part of the reason that why the Empire flocked to the New Republic because it's a lot more effort to try and prop up your own or keep the Empire together than it is to just admit you can just join the winning side.
Yeah,
people wanting to retain that power, but like we surrender, let me have power and I'll stay with you and.
And they know the Republic's gonna be like, you're not keeping any of your power. It's
the easy way.
You're being tried for war criminals.
Yeah,
war crimes.
Which is actually kind of surprises me that a lot of Imperial officers don't just empty out all their bank accounts and run away. Well,
which
like I'm talking about. Apparently did happen.
Yeah, it's probably is what's going to happen because JJ likened the Empire to the Nazis if they had gone to Argentina like they did in real life but came back afterwards, like emptying their bank accounts, going to like a foreign place, and then coming back even more powerful.
Well, they're making a big deal about the whole unknown regions, aren't they? And going
Yes. I think that's a big thing. I think that's a big hint.
Yeah, definitely.
About where the Empire's going.
Yeah, the Empire goes in, the New Order comes out.
Yeah, exactly.
Which kind of could relate to something that happens at the ending of the book.
We're gonna spoil this. We can talk about it.
Yeah. Okay. The book like I mentioned earlier, Sloane survived. She survived the book, and the book ends. With her on a starship. We don't know where. We don't know where. We don't know where. We don't know what kind of starship it is. We don't know what's going on. She's talking to
Admiral. It's just he's Admiral.
Yeah, she's just talking. She's talking to a random admiral, and he says, how did things go? And she's like, you planned this, didn't you? And she's like, and he's just basically like, well, there's a lot of infighting, and if we can't, get this infighting to stop, we'll never have our hold on the galaxy again. So I sent you to basically kill everybody else. And what's funny is even she's like, well, what if I had died in the process? And then he just coldly says, then you wouldn't. Then my doubts about you would have been wrong, and you wouldn't have been worthy to serve with me. And what's funny is this guy. We don't know who this guy is.
No.
But he yeah, we don't know who he is. He's never called by name. She just refers to him as Admiral.
Yeah, not Grand Admiral, which I was like, oh.
Not Grand.
But I loved how he sort of
yeah.
tapped on the shoulder and was like, as she thought, oh, a sort of a way of comforting me, and then sort of, no, move along. I've got things to do.
That's so dismissive. Whoever this guy is, he's a very dismissive person.
Yeah, doesn't bode well for the Empire.
And like, that's something too. My personal theory is that was Snoke, which for those of you who don't know, that is
podcast. I'm busy. Sorry, that was my brother.
Yeah. Well, my personal theory on who that was at the end, I have a feeling that was Snoke, who, for those of you who are watching who don't know, that is basically the supreme leader of the New Order, who Andy Serkis is going to be playing in Episode 7. So, I mean, Snoke had to start from somewhere, and him being an admiral, going from admiral to supreme leader over the course of 30 years isn't an unprecedented jump. Just saying.
Well, definitely not. I mean, admiral's the highest you can go, militarily speaking.
Well, no, Admiral, Grand
of course,
Admiral.
but that was added on after the fact. That was,
and then Grand Monarch, and then Vader and Palpatine.
with the state they're in now. I mean, admiral's the highest they can get because you have to have an official ruler to get ranked up from that point. There's no one to rank them up, so that's the highest you can go.
Yeah, so he's he's the last admiral as far as we know. We don't know who he is, although I think it's Snoke. I don't know. Who do you guys think he is?
I thought it was a hint to Thrawn for sure.
I was expecting
seemed
a blue-colored
too
hand.
obvious. It seems
If-
too
He says too
obvious.
obvious. It's
No,
not obvious to everybody though.
I think if they'd referenced that he rested a blue hand on her shoulder, if it was going to be Grand Admiral Thrawn,
Yeah, I
it's another
know. That's
logical
what it
one.
should be. Yeah.
And she says
Yeah.
Admiral,
It's
not
like
Grand Admiral.
he's a character who should be Thrawn, but probably isn't because
Yeah, I
I'm
know, it
pretty
totally
sure that I'm pretty sure Abrams just has no patience for Thrawn, so no patience for him.
Yeah, which is why I think it's more likely Snoke.
Yeah, it was a shame because this could have slotted so perfectly into the EU if it was Thrawn.
Well, I will say this: if that is Snoke, then I already like Snoke because dang, he's pretty cool.
Well, if
And
it
he's
is
a bit of an
Snoke,
idiot,
if
though.
it is,
How is he an
if
idiot?
it is,
He's dismissing one of his best assets after she's already doubting him because he just sent her off to be tested. You know, he's like, "Hello, extremely valuable resource. Bye."
Well, not like dismissing her, just like, you could carry on with your business. I have stuff to do.
That's
It's not
exactly
like
what he
she's.
said, pretty much. I mean, that's
What's wrong with that?
well because she's not
Even
subordinate.
Thrawn
She's an
did
admiral.
that.
He's an admiral.
Okay.
She was acting
Okay.
fleet admiral when she was on mission. That was what she was supposedly doing. So he needs to treat his subordinates with, or even rather equals, perhaps, with a bit more respect than that. If he's going to lead the empire to
Perhaps.
glory,
yeah.
What are we
or at
gonna
least
say?
Now,
not be so obvious about it. So, bye.
my approach to this, it's like the fact that this character is so Thrawn-like means that I already kind of dislike him because it means that he's basically a Grand Admiral Thrawn ripoff, which kind of goes back to how almost all of the new material being produced, especially Rebels, is just cherry picking stuff from the old EU without any regards for the intricacies. It's like they take the idea for the Inquisitorius, but make all of the Inquisitors idiots. Like they wasted Jason Isaacs. You do not waste
I know,
Jason
they really
Isaacs.
did waste him.
Yeah.
So it's like that's what I'm worried that they're doing with this guy. It's like they're just happy to take the concept that is Admiral Thrawn without taking the character himself, because it's like, they just want the core idea that they can do their own thing with. They don't want to be bothered with observing continuity, which is generally their approach to everything with Star Wars. It's like, we don't care about continuity. We just do what we want. That story or character is a good character, then we're just going to cherry pick him. But we don't care what baggage comes with them.
Yeah.
And it's just like,
I guess we'll
So
just
the-
have to see.
yeah.
Yeah.
But at least that's a failing
Yeah.
of the overall direction of the EU as opposed to a failing of this book, because I feel
Yeah.
that if anything was a editorial mandate, then it would have been that last scene, because it goes, oh, by the way, you have to set up the film.
Yeah.
Because this
It's like
seems
the
like it
si-
would be
it's-
Thrawn if it was the
it's-
author's decision.
Yeah. It's like that scene in Darth Plagueis where Palpatine gets Baby Maul from the Night Sister. It's like that in and of itself was just something that they had to work in because they needed to explain how Maul could be a Night Brother because the book was post TCW. And it's just like, it's like in that particular...
Yeah, Antoine.
Yeah,
I
no.
Yeah.
Hold on, I'll read it.
I
Wait,
give
what?
James Luce.
We
I
know
give James. I give James Luceno credit for trying to make the best of a bad situation, but that scene itself is just like, I kind of disliked it because it's like it just kind of goes back to how against Maul being a Night Brother I am.
Yeah, you might not as author then because they wrote a hilarious line.
Yeah. Okay. Here I'm
Yeah.
reading it right now. Okay.
Oh
so
yeah,
it says,
Wait a minute.
he's about
Wait
to
a
turn and
minute.
demand his credits back, but then he sees someone, a woman, Zabrak, or is it Dathomirian or Iridonian? He's not sure of the distinction of, or if even one even exists.
I remember now. Yeah.
I was like, oh, cool. He's playing right into it.
Yeah.
He's breaking the fourth wall, but not really breaking the fourth wall.
Yeah,
You know,
Meta.
it's like, weren't they from Iridonian? Oh no, it's not. Who knows? Who knows at this point
Who
anymore?
the hell are they from? Whatever planet they're from
Because
nowadays.
I've even done that when I did my Darth Maul intro and one of the versus videos. I said I was trying to like make both of them work. I was like, she's Iridonian, but he's a Night Brother. Yeah. And people were like, I don't get it. Is he from Iridonian? I'm like, it's complicated, you know.
Too many retcons.
It's a whole bunch of pointless retcons, is what it is. And yeah, it's like
Not so much
that
pointless is that it's how can I say, careless.
Unnecessary.
It's careless. No, it's just careless because it means that at some point someone just didn't look to check up on it and were like, oh, he's Night Brother, even though they didn't realize that he already had an established homeworld and all that kind of stuff. So yeah,
And it's annoying
I think
because the
it's more
people who made
carelessness.
those mistakes, i.e. the people who wrote Clone Wars, are the people that think, no, we have to get rid of the canon because it's too complicated. It's like, no, just because you can't get it, there are people who obviously can. It went on for 20 years with almost no problems. Almost. I know there were some.
Almost.
like the thing is they're acting as though getting rid of the old expanded universe solves the problem of cluttered continuity. No, it doesn't. You've just thrown yourself back to square one. Your own additional material, which you are observing the continuity for, is inevitably going to become just as cluttered and confusing as the original expanded universe was, but the original expanded universe had a system in place to deal with that. You don't. So eventually you're going to be treading on toes because end of the day, it's like movies take priority over everything. And how long until Abrams decides, I'm just going to do this instead of that, and ends up retconning one of the Disney books?
What are you referring to when you're saying that they don't have an established system to deal with that? I'm not sure what you're
Because-
referring to.
Because the thing is, the original expanded universe had the canon tiers, whereas Disney doesn't. They just say, oh, everything's canon, until they inadvertently
I actually
To
think
be
the
fair,
tier
something
system was
that
a
they-
little bit more convoluted.
Yeah, to be fair, the tier system was
Yeah.
terrible. The only reason it was good back in the day is because people didn't really look at that. They just went with what they knew. It was like, okay, this happened, this happened, this happened. And it was also told kind of progressively. So it was start of the Return of the Jedi, or start of the end of Return of the Jedi, and then moving on from that. And then filling in blanks. It wasn't like, whereas it's now, it kind of jumps between eras. The story group could manage it if they did it well, but they're not going to bother. So
Yeah,
Well, but
it's not gonna. There's already some continuity stuff. I know we're gonna talk about Weapon of the Jedi, but like there's already kind of some weird continuity, like things that are not meshing together already. So it's like,
Yeah.
it's gonna happen again. So.
And there was something in Dark Disciple as well that overrode something that already previously said. Or was it this book? I can't remember. But they've made a big misstep already. I know that.
Yeah,
much.
it's already happening. It's already
Yeah.
happening. It's like,
And it doesn't matter. We don't care. We didn't need the EU scrapping because it didn't make sense, even though it mostly did, like 98% of it. Because we look over that.
Yeah.
We're fans. We'll go through a lot for what we love.
Yeah.
Ain't that especially Star Wars fans?
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially Star Wars fans. Do we have any
Well, like,
more? Oh, yes,
I've said it before, I'll say it again. I did have my moment of doubt where I was seriously questioning remaining a Star Wars fan or just, abandoning my project, selling off my collection, moving on to something else, like Lord of the Rings. And it's just like then I got hold of a Dark Times Fire Carrier, the one that's centered around Kakruk, and that was the volume that really kind of reaffirmed my love of Star Wars and reminded me why I'm in this racket. And it also basically just helped me decide my role in things as a Star Wars fan. I'm Kakruk, hanging out in my secret Jedi enclave on Arkinia. Disney is the Empire, but I'll just wait.
Even though it's not technically
For
his
100
fault, it's
years.
Kathleen Kennedy.
If necessary.
And then he'll train an angry blonde kid to defeat the reigning Sith Lord, or help train. Yeah, legacy joke.
But should we get into final thoughts now? We've covered pretty much everything.
Yeah, I was gonna say that because heading the 2-hour mark.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
big thing about this book is it felt like in one of the original EU books for me. It was not in the necessarily the tone or the writing style because it was very simple, but in how it was coming to the universe. It was a continuation of a story. It didn't step on anybody's toes. It told a compelling story, it introduced a lot of compelling characters, told them compellingly, and it kind of enriched the universe without detracting from anything. It felt like a Star Wars experience rather than a construct. And again, the biggest thing about this book is it's natural. You read this, and barring like the odd sentence or like the metaphor thing or some tiny amounts of humor, which is still funny, just a bit forced, I loved it. I really loved reading this book, which I'm happy for. And again, it works. You can read this and then read the Thrawn trilogy, and it still makes sense, which I particularly enjoy. That's my thoughts.
I completely agree with everything you said. This book set out to construct a world, construct characters that you get a good idea of what's going on, and it hit the nail on the head on every single front. I really, like you said, it slides in perfectly with past continuity. Every character is memorable in their own way. The world building they do is excellent, aside from maybe one or two of the cutaways, which we talked about earlier. I really don't have any serious complaints. Like, literally the biggest thing you could hold against this book is the fact that the main story it's not bad, but it's nothing groundbreaking. But if that's the biggest flaw of your book, then I'd say you're already ahead of the game on a lot of other stories.
Yeah, that's very true. Because a lot of people who are critical are nitpicking his like style choices, and it's like if that's all you're nitpicking, then
done pretty well.
You don't have much issue with it. Yeah,
the fact that you have to go out of your way to complain instead of having your complaints just come naturally, just speaks to the level of quality. Yeah. It's always easier to complain about something that's obvious than not.
And it's not like it was a bad story. It was a character piece, so the story suffered as a result. You know, it was a side effect, not a problem as such.
Yes.
Yeah.
And as I said, I like the interludes. The interludes are my favorite part. My final thoughts. Easily, like I would have super loved just having a whole set of just interludes the whole way through. I did like half of the crew for all of the book, and then all of them at the end of the book. And I forgot to mention the part I was interested in, but it was part where Sinjir was talking to the Grand Moff, or the guy who was the self-proclaimed Grand Moff, and he basically just like is just jabbing him with all these these witty words. And I was just like, that was the part. Yeah. He's like, like that. He's just getting punched the whole time. I'm like that whole sequence. I was like, I'm in love with you now. Thank you very much. You know? And then they started interacting together, and then I was like, I like this crew now. And so it ended off better than it started for me. And the interludes, all of them for me, were just like really rich. And I like that they were talking about the dynamic between the New Republic and the Empire, and really diving into what that would mean. And I think that was done eloquently, and I thought it was a pretty solid book. It wasn't a perfect book for me. I didn't actually enjoy a majority of the characters from the beginning, but I think it was a solid book for me.
Connor, what about you?
I think he's
no, it's like my issue with the book is, well, really it's just the whole fact that it's so focused on characters that story suffers, and because of that it did lack focus as a result because of that story suffering thing. And I'm primarily a plot-oriented reader. When I read books, that's kind of what I'm here for. It's like the character stuff it's great stuff to have in there, but only if it's supplementing and heightening a storyline or plot. Whereas with this book, that's really not happening. It's kind of the other way around. And because of that, it's excellent casual reading. Like I could just sit down in, a public library in a nice big armchair surrounded by books and quiet people and just flip through this thing and no problem. But it's like if you trying to power through this book in time for this review was very difficult for me, because the book doesn't really encourage that kind of reading. And it's like, again, this is just a trait of the book. It's not necessarily a flaw. It's like the book is clearly chasing after being casual reading. You just want to take this thing at its own pace and take it easy. You don't want to power through it. It's not the sort of thing that gets you hanging on to every single word, wondering what's going to happen next. It's like it's a sort of book where you can just pick it up at any point, stop at any point, and resume at any point later on, and you're still fine.
Having read it in the last 8 hours, just specifically finishing it before this review, I completely agree, because I would have loved to take my time with this one.
Yes.
But yeah, it's definitely something you kind of dip in and out of, just from the way the story is kind of told, because it kind of does sort of go up, down, because it's going around those character loops.
Yes, exactly.
All right. So
I guess we should all. I was about
Final
to say-
ratings.
Yes, final ratings.
Yeah, final ratings. I think we should just go for a straight thumbs up, thumbs down. Do we recommend it or not? Because
Oh, yeah,
it's
that's
like,
better.
I agree.
I like
Yeah,
that.
so
Yeah.
Let's all do that then.
yeah. All right then. Well then, I give this book a tentative recommendation. Like, don't get me wrong, this is actually a really good book, but the thing is, it's not the sort of book if you're looking for something to really hold your interest. This is a coffee table book. It's a book you read because you just want to sit down and read something for the sake of reading. It's not a book you read for what it has. Like, don't get me wrong, what it has is great, but it's wine, not beer.
It's pretty good.
I would recommend the book if you're really looking to look deeper into the universe and getting knowledge for it. I don't know if I would give a full recommendation if you're just looking for an entirely engaging story. That's just coming from me, because for me, I didn't find it as fully engaging throughout the whole piece until the very end. But that's just me. That's just my whole thing. If you really want to know what the heck's going on in between Return of the Jedi and The Force Awakens, yeah, definitely recommend it for you.
I give it a solid recommendation myself. The main story, while a bit simple in its execution and not something of grandeur, I definitely feel like the quality was good enough to keep my interest personally. And like I said before, the world building, which is its main purpose, is handled beautifully. And again, good characters. Like Callan said earlier, everything feels natural, everything flows well. It's just all around a very, very just satisfying book to me. And I might be a little presumptuous by saying this, but I think I liked it about the same as Tarkin for different reasons. Like, the reason I think Tarkin was so strong was because of its main story and obviously Tarkin's development as a character. But I did feel that Tarkin's world building was a bit lackluster. This is basically everything Tarkin got wrong, this got right, and everything this got wrong, Tarkin got right. So that's why I personally view Aftermath and Tarkin, at least on grading on how much I like them, pretty much on the same tier.
Okay.
For me.
For me, I would 100% recommend this book. For me, it's a book I can pick up and slot quite happily into my Legends canon, which is what I want from this new EU. But it's not because it's just the references to it. It's or the fact that it doesn't tread on the toes. It's the fact that it feels like one. I read this book and I feel like I'm getting a Star Wars experience that understands the Star Wars experience. That isn't just a Star Wars experience. It's new, it's fresh. But
That was super meta.
Yeah, really
That
bad
was
at
super
phrasing
meta. Yeah,
things. But
I want to see that on a T-shirt now. That really has to be on
I
a
want a Star
T-shirt
Wars
now.
experience that feels like a Star Wars experience that isn't just a Star Wars experience. Yeah, no.
Write that in the comments, guys. Write that in the comments. And if anyone watching this has a T-shirt maker, make it. And yeah.
Yeah, poorly put, but I think you get my point.
Yes.
It feels like the books that not just the books, the media I know and love from back in the day, and
You felt like you were 7 years old again, going to the bookstore and picking out the latest issue of Jedi Quest.
yes, yeah, or Thrawn trilogy is a big one. This could be a prequel to the Thrawn trilogy. Not like directly plot wise, but it feels like that, and in terms of the era, and I love it for it. Yeah, and definitely this is by far the best book of the new EU for me. I mean, I liked some of the others, as Heir to the Jedi and Tarkin I liked, but this just blows them out of the water in my opinion. Just from the whole, it's the natural side of things. It's natural, and that for me is everything. So yeah, thumbs up.
Well said. Yeah.
Sweet.
Okay.
So we'll see you guys on the next one.
Yeah,
I guess
two
we're
within 1 week. It's pretty impressive for us at the moment.
Yeah, I
Keep
guess
the
our
ball
next
rolling.
one's gonna be
Bakura?
weapon, or
Are we doing that still?
Whoa. It's going to be a surprise.
Yes, so you'll
You guys
find
will
out
find
later.
out.
we'll figure it out. We are professionals.
Yes, we
Are-
know what
are
we're
we?
doing. We're not just making this up as we go along.
Totally.
So yeah, we hope you enjoyed this session of the Council Forcecast. Ready for bidding you adieu. That's not my ending. I've just decided to say that twice now. Fly casual.
Fly casual.
Whatever. Jen Sarai signing off.
This is Antoine. Peace, love, and may the force be with you always.
In English. isn't it?
Heaven over 95. We hope you guys enjoyed. We'll see you guys later.
Peace is a lie, motherfucker.
There is no. Oh, I've lost it. Oh, bye.